Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Okay, welcome back everybody to the Maverick News channel. Hello new viewers and Maverick family. So much to cover tonight. This will be, I guess, kind of an extension of last night's program because Mike McCarrick is coming back. He has a few things that he'd like to address tonight as a continuation of the conversation from last night about Ukraine and Ukraine defense support and some other issues. And he's also going to weigh in on some other information that we have tonight with regard to Zelensky kind of doubling down on this Kursk incursion. Zelensky saying they're not going to give up any of the land there. They're in for the long haul. He's going to hold on to what they've taken indefinitely. That's the word from Zelensky himself. So we'll take a look at that tonight. We have some other news as well, but this is going to be the main focus, at least for the first part of this program. So let's take a quick break. We'll get things queued up and we'll bring Mike McCarrick of Ukraine Defense Support in on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are Maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow, maybe too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's bring Mike McCarrick back in. Hello, sir. Welcome back.
Hello. Thanks for having me back again.
No, my privilege, our privilege. Before we get into sort of a review and a response to what was said last night, we should probably touch on a little bit of the news today because there are reports that 50 people have been killed in a Russian missile strike on a Ukrainian military facility.
Is this the one in Poltava?
I believe so, yes. 2 ballistic missiles hit an educational institution and a nearby hospital, yes, in the city of Poltava, 190 miles southeast of Kyiv.
I don't know about the hospital, but I think whatever somebody was calling the educational institution was a military educational institution. It was an educational institution, but military people were studying there, and Ukraine has admitted that.
Yeah. So, more tragedy, really, is what we're looking at here. And Zelensky, in an interview, I think with NBC News today, was saying that he's not going to give up any of the territory that they've taken in Kursk. They're determined to hold on to it indefinitely. What do you make of that?
I don't know why they would give it up, unless there's a military reason to give it up. They went in there for a reason. They're paying a price for a reason. Even their casualties haven't been that heavy in Kursk so far. Complete sidebar. I did actually look up how to pronounce the region, and I have a hard time leaving out my R's. That's part of my Western Colorado accent, one of the few parts of it. But Britannica, I believe, said something like Kursk, Kursk, I believe, is as close as I can get on my terrible accent. So I apologize to any of the people from there because I'm having difficulty properly pronouncing the region's name. Anyway, so they were paying a price, if nothing else, in expended supplies, which is always a precious commodity because the ability to get supplies to where they are needed is significantly more than the price that it takes to purchase them. So, for instance, this is an old statistic, but it's still valid to illustrate my point. You can buy, for instance, a gallon of diesel fuel for whatever it costs, $3, $4, $5, depending on where you are. Probably more like $7 in Europe right now. But once you purchase it and then you transport it to a military base and you store it, and then you put it on some sort of transport ship to get it where it goes into a port, it gets offloaded in a port, and to get it into Afghanistan, there was no direct port access. So then you had to put it onto fuel trucks, and then those fuel trucks had to go in through two very not secure and rough roads into Afghanistan. And then, of course, you have to do security details on the supply convoy, and it's just all this kind of... So you're throwing all of this money to get the gallon of diesel fuel that you purchased to where it needs to go. So the difference between a $5 gallon of diesel fuel that you purchased in the States or wherever, and then when it finally got to a forward operating base to run a diesel generator, for instance, it would have cost $1,000, and that wasn't the gallon of fuel, because the gallon of fuel only cost $5. But to put it onto a ship and to unload it onto trucks and to get the trucks into a secured convoy with all the security details and all that, the armored Humvees that were part of the escort, and then of course to get it from a big hub like Kandahar or Bagram, you're going to have to put it on a fuel bladder and fly it over to the FOB. You can just see how expensive it gets very quickly. So the expense of the operation into Russia is not trivial, not even close. So you're not going to do that without a reason. And I can't see them going through all of that and then just giving it up. Why would you do that? Ukraine's smarter than that. They've demonstrated that they're smarter than that. I have no idea why you would do that. It makes no sense. So yes, of course he's going to stay.
Here's a highlight from the NBC interview.
First of all, a real major attack in the city of Poltava today. What can you tell us about what happened?
Ще одна трагедія в Україні, і це факт.
That's another tragedy in Ukraine. The Russians struck. The missile flew some 3 minutes, and people didn't have time to go to shelter. And now many of them were wounded or killed just at the time of going to the shelter.
Oops. Sorry, I pulled the wrong one down. So, yeah,
I didn't know if you're going to pull another video, but that is one of the problems with fast weapons. Russia is not currently, to my knowledge anyway, employing straight up hypersonic weapons, which have a relatively specific definition in military parlance. They are using weapons that fly at hypersonic speeds. That is different than a hypersonic weapon, if that makes sense. Because if you're talking about weapons that fly at hypersonic speeds, the German V2 rocket that they were using against London was a hypersonic weapon, if you're going to loosey-goosey the definition that far. And so these Kinzhal theater ballistic missiles is the military definition of what they are, whether they're air-launched, because the MiG-31 and the Su-35 are at least two of the airborne platforms that can launch them. There's probably more. They're fast, and they come in quick. Anytime you reduce the reaction time, that's a real problem. Ukraine has a limited number of interceptors that can go after them. Patriot battery has a known success rate against them. Probably not perfect. No defense system will be perfect, but I don't know that there was even a Patriot battery that was within range of Poltava. That's further east. I'd have to look at a map, but it's a bit southwest of Kharkiv and significantly east from Kiev, where most of the Patriot batteries are. So I don't know if they even had a defense in Poltava against that type of weapon. And they're fast, and Zelensky wasn't joking. It's small handful, single-digit minutes is all you get, and that's part of the threat of this type of weapon.
Yeah, you just mentioned you don't have much time when these kinds of weapons come in, and yesterday, in the interview that I did with Kevin Michelizzi, I honestly took exception to one of the things that he said. He said that the civilians who were in the sports complex that was hit by the Russian missile, I guess that would be, 2 days ago now? Hard to keep track of the days, but in any event, he said that the people there had to accept some blame for being bombed because they didn't go to a bomb shelter.
It's victim blaming. Russia is taking direct kinetic action, to use a sterilized military phrase. They are using lethal force against Ukraine. Some of their weapons are just not accurate. They have varying degrees of accuracy on their weapon systems. Mm-hmm. And some of the weapons they're using against the back portions of Ukraine, the non-front line portions of Ukraine, are just not accurate. And so there's no way that Russia could honestly say that they were consistently targeting military targets, because their weapons don't have the accuracy to guarantee that.
And, the thing for me is, it's like, well, we don't know the circumstances that people in that building might have been under. Maybe the air raid sirens were going off. Maybe they were trying to help some elderly person get out of the building and ran out of time. Or maybe they just didn't have time. Maybe there's no shelter nearby. He's saying that there are always bomb shelters within walking distance. I don't know if that's really true. I can't imagine that would always be the case. So I just have a hard time with a statement like that, because it seems to almost be the result of people becoming desensitized in this during, as this war drags on. It's easy to dehumanize people and lay blame on a victim. I don't care what side you're on. It really, honestly, the statement bothered me a lot.
So there is one nation that started this war, and there's one nation that is responsible for targeting these civilians, and that's Russia. This war would end if Russia just stopped attacking. Ukraine doesn't want to have a war with Russia. Ukraine doesn't want to continue this war. They're not going to give up, because giving up is a fate worse than fighting. So why would you blame Ukrainian civilians for the conscious decision to use lethal force against Ukraine by Russia? The Ukrainian citizens, they're not in that decision-making loop. That's the Russian decision makers. So I do want to address, one comment. Sorry, I shouldn't be watching, I am. That somebody said they didn't like the Ukrainian flag. This Ukrainian flag was a gift to me. It means a lot to me. It was a gift from a Ukrainian unit, and I recently found out that one person that signed this flag, I hadn't heard from him in 2 years, and it turns out he's alive. He's a close friend of mine. So if you don't like this flag, I guess you don't have to look at it, but it has personal meaning to me. What I sometimes have up in front of my house is my deployment flag. This is the flag that I carried with me through my deployment and through various nations that I visited as an active duty member of the Air Force. When you're talking to a military veteran, flags have meaning. And this flag behind me is my friends. My deployment flag is what I went through. And it's not like I'm like, yeah, don't mistreat these specific items. These personally owned specific items have specific meaning to me. So just to explain what's going on with that flag, that it's part of my personal personal value, personal friendships, a reminder of what my friends are going through. So you can like it or not like it all you want, but that's why it's there.
So last night, some accusations thrown around, and you weren't really given an opportunity to address them. And I want to get to that, but before I get to that, I know that you would like to have an opportunity to respond. So the floor is yours.
So we can do this in any number of ways, I guess. He can talk smack about me, and I can take it. I've taken worse from worse people, and I've lived to tell the tale. Yeah. So the weird thing that I saw, and I don't know what situation he's in. So
for people who maybe didn't see last night, we're talking about Kevin Michelizzi, who's a regular on the program, and he's very pro-Russian, obviously. And we were talking about the situation in Ukraine, and then of course there were many accusations leveled at Mike because of an appearance that you made on the program the night before that. So again, just so people understand, and I'll throw it back to you.
So it was interesting because he was saying all these things, and he had the floor, which that's the way free nations and free peoples act, is that sometimes you get a chance to say what you need, what you think, and that's fine. There is the statement about your ability to swing your fist ends where my nose begins. But that's kind of why I decided I needed to be on here tonight, is that he can say what he wants about me and I can take it. But the group that I joined, that I help lead, is something that needs more explanation. I'm not sure if the viewers here know. Certainly he did not. He was leveling all sorts of just bizarre accusations against it. So one of the things that he's, I believe he's still an American citizen, even though he lives in Crimea. His internet might be throttled. He might not have been able to Google this, although it's such a publicly known information. You can find other websites for it. So one of the things that he was trying to use was the IRS definition of what a 501c3 organization is. Mm-hmm. Ukraine Defense Support is a 501c3 charitable organization that was formed by a group of individuals who had a personal investment in Ukraine. And one of the specific IRS rules is that anybody can form an organization like this if they see a need that needs to be filled. And so several people in the group that formed part of the original formation the Ukraine war had started. They knew people there and they decided they wanted to help. So it started out as a very loose-knit group of individuals that were just talking on the phone saying, I'll do this if you do that. And then maybe we can coordinate this and we can, combine this effort and all that kind of stuff. And maybe we shouldn't waste our effort on that kind of stuff. And that just a conversation among individuals is how it started. Sometime in 2023, before I joined the organization, they decided that they had developed sufficiently and their organization had grown enough that they should file for tax-exempt status. And that is the 501c3 refers to a part of the American Legal Code. And they authorize groups to organize under a charitable status for purposes of tax benefits, both for the group. The group doesn't need to pay taxes. They can incorporate, but they don't need to pay taxes. And then also for donators, people that are willing to give the group money. There's a bottom line, I'd like to say $250, but I'd have to look it up, where you can claim certain donations on your personal. Donators can list those on their personal tax forms if they itemize their taxes. And those donations will become tax exempt. So,
hey, Knights Table 4, you hang on, because you ain't seen nothing yet. If you think this is boring, you just buckle up, because we got one heck of a ride ready for you. Go ahead there, Mike.
No, that's okay. I don't see that comment, but boring is factual. So sensational, like what Kevin was saying, is wrong. But you're like, get all excited about this, and sensationalism sells. The tabloids use that. People on YouTube use that all the time. And then the truth can sometimes be boring, but the truth is the truth, and sensationalism and lies are sensationalism and lies. And lying about a group is not okay. Depending on how you do it and why you do it and what damage it caused, it actually can be a crime. I'm not saying that's what Kevin had done here, but it does deserve to be explained. That Ukraine Defense Support did nothing to deserve the vitriol that Kevin gave us. So he was trying to say that when the IRS defines this charitable organization, the category that we are in is that we receive most of our money from either personal donations or public donations or government grants. And he was trying to say it's run by the American government. And I started laughing because that's ridiculous. Because all I can think of is, I wish we had government grants, because that would be a level of resource that we could really use instead of the $20 here, $100 here. And now that we're a tax-free group, we can maybe start to look at donations in the $20,000 range. And that's kind of where we're at. Now, we've built all of that into, I'd like to say $750,000 is our total delivered so far. That's a combination of donated money and then in-kind contributions. So, for instance, I have delivered to Ukrainian soldiers, I have delivered approximately $200,000 worth of uniforms and boots and cold weather gear and gloves and things like that. But those are donated objects, not donated money. So that would be what the in-kind contribution would be. Yeah, I mean, we're like a hospital, or a church. That's the kind of company that we keep as a 501c3. If you are talking about the other category of 501c3 that we are not, that is a private charity which receives most of their money either from a private foundation or from a government grant. That would be something like an orchestra or an opera company that would receive most of their, or a significant portion of their money from the United States has something called the National Endowment for the Arts, which is a government funded grant organization to help artists. So orchestras that I've worked with were NEA funded, all over the place. And that's the way those groups run. We are not them. So the other thing is he was leveling, I don't know if you wanted to pull up the webpage.
Sure.
I want to be fully transparent. This is Ukraine Defense Support's webpage. We are not hiding anything. You can go on there and look. There's a donate button. We have several ongoing specific fundraisers right now. if you would like to do that. Is it not working up there? We're reformatting our website. Oh, there they are. It just took a second. So these are very specific things that we're doing. You can go to the About Us page. It'll give us a breakdown of what we do. You can go down to the bottom. It'll list the leadership. Go up just a little bit. The leadership of the group. I'm bottom left there. Carl's top left. You can go on either one of our bios. You can read at least, it's a blurb. This is a short form of a biography, but just, the couple of sentences kind of a thing. You can read about me. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. There's nothing that I'm hiding from. In fact, that picture right there is my profile picture on Facebook. It's me up in the Austrian Alps. It was a great trip. And so there's nothing that we're hiding here. I don't know where he's getting his conspiracy theories from. I don't know if he can see this website. I don't know if it's blocked where he is. I genuinely don't know. He seemed savvy enough to know a VPN.
I think he actually showed the website.
Yeah. So feel free to go there. We're redoing it a little bit because we started a blog, and we're trying to do an RSS feed, and we're creating more YouTube content that we wanted to link onto our website. And we also have some Twitter spaces that might turn into more of a YouTube-ish podcasty kind of a thing that we're going to link to. So like I said, it started as a group of individuals, and we're gradually building up into something more professional. And so the website having additions and a little bit of construction is part of that growing process.
So he said that you guys are just a bunch of CIA operatives. So
I wish we had the CIA's resources.
So these people in the video, I guess they're all CIA agents too, right?
That was at some Seattle area. I actually haven't watched that video, but that opening picture, they were on there was some sort of Seattle area gathering, and that certainly is a Seattle area gathering. Wow. But this has more pictures of some of the people that we've helped. Carl is both a U.S. Army, I believe, Iraq veteran. I don't think he was in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And he is also a veteran of the Foreign Legion in Ukraine. He fought for several months on the front lines in Ukraine's Foreign Legion. And he came back and he still kept in contact, and he decided he would continue working from the States in order to help the people he knew on the front lines. So,
and what about the him talking about lobbying, which you've openly talked about, yes, politicians, and I'm kind of like, well, okay, so what? But
so one of our mission statements, because when you file for the tax exempt status, you have to describe what your group is, because they've got to approve your application. One of our mission statements is that we'd be public advocates for Ukraine, so that the open air Seattle gatherings like we're in those pictures are part of that, where we talk to just people that show up at those gatherings. Mm-hmm. And we sometimes talk to our representatives either as individual citizens, as is our right as American citizens, or as members of the group. Now, a 501c3 is not a political organization. That is a different category of group that you also is registered with the IRS. That is a 501c4, and I think there's other categories as well, but we are not a political organization. We are a charitable organization devoted to helping the citizens and soldiers of Ukraine through non-lethal aid, so medical and clothing are our two main efforts. Now, a 501c3 like us does have limited authority to lobby Congress. We had a major push in April that was, we are members of the American Coalition for Ukraine, which is a nationwide overall kind of indexing for group that organizes different Ukrainian groups into like one summit. It's a biannual summit, twice a year summit. And the April summit was right at the tail end of America not having any past aid, and so we for over the weekend, we just talked to other groups. Like, this is what we're doing. What are you doing? How can we learn from each other? That was a Saturday and Sunday part of the summit. And then Monday and Tuesday, and then it extended into Wednesday and Thursday, we walked the congressional office buildings. There are 2 House buildings and 1 Senate building, and we walked those. And I was part of the Illinois delegation that was run by a former U.S. attorney. But I was part of the American Coalition for Ukraine during that. This former U.S. attorney couldn't make some of the meetings, so I was the delegation lead for Representative Schneider, Representative Bost, and I'm not pulling up the third guy's name right now. I was for 3 of those 12 House member meetings, I was the delegation lead. And that is our right as an American citizen. You can petition Congress. It's right in there in the amendments.
So, I mean, look, it's people. Kevin doesn't agree with your position on this war in Ukraine.
As is his right, and it is his right to contact his congressman.
Right, and your organization, it has been assembled to advocate for aid to Ukraine. That's what you're doing. And I don't understand the demonization, I guess, of you speaking to politicians to support your position on this.
That's how America works. So we were talking about the aid bill that was in front of the House at the time that was passed the Friday of that week that we had meetings. We were talking about presidential drawdown authority, which is a limited dollar amount. It was an annual amount that the U.S. president has to, under his discretion as commander-in-chief of the United States military, to draw from American military stocks and send direct aid as he sees fit, because under the Constitution, foreign policy is the president's job. It's one of the specific outlined jobs of the president. So presidential drawdown authority was something that we were advocating for. And another issue was loan interest or loan forgiveness through the IMF, which would be part of Congress's purview. And so there were any number of things that we were talking about that were part of that thing. And if he wants to contact his members of Congress, or as an expat living overseas, he can also have a direct line to the Speaker of the House, who, as the leader of the House, and depending on how you count it, second or third in line to the presidency, it goes President, Vice President, Speaker of the House in terms of succession. That is a national position, and any American citizen can call directly into the Speaker of the House. Speaker Johnson's office has a line that you can call, email that he can email. So,
summarize where we're at with this stuff so far. You are a registered charity.
Absolutely.
You have to be transparent with your financials.
Yes.
So you will be making all of that information publicly available. He
showed some of it. The initial filing is public, where I don't think he had all of the documentation, but any organization that registers with the IRS is established an EIN number. That's just part of it. And we are given, we incorporated it was March or April. I'd have to look at your date, but spring 24 is when we are finally granted the status. We have until December 31st to file our first year of tax filings, and we are currently working on that.
So he was, I think he was sort of suggesting that prior to the approval, just within the last year of charitable status, you weren't a nonprofit. So that's opening questions. Well, who was profiting then? So I'll throw it out to you. Has anyone profited from being involved with this organization? Was it a for-profit organization before?
There is not a single individual in our organization that has taken a dime from Ukraine Defense Support or from any of our donators. I am part of the leadership board. I earned $0 when I went to the summit in Washington, D.C. I paid for that out of my own pocket. I drove there. I put the miles on my own car. I paid for the hotel. I paid for all meals. I paid for the registration fee for the summit. I brought 2 gifts to give to my congressional delegation. I paid for those gifts. They're small little tchotchkes. They're little $5 things, but still, it was out of my own pocket. There's nobody on our leadership board or any of our members that earn a dime. And everybody like me has paid out of pocket for any of these trips.
Okay. And what else were we talking about? What was the other issue? The charitable status.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the difference for applying a charitable status was. Mainly it was we just finally got big enough that it mattered. Mm-hmm. But before that, we were still a charitable organization. We could not state to our donors that they could use the donated amounts
tax write-off
on their own tax forms because we were not registered as a 501c3. So anyone donating us money could not write that donation off on their tax forms.
And
and so as a favor to people that might be donating to us, we're like, yeah, let's jump through that hoop and become an official group. And we just got bigger. Like I said, it started out, I think it was like 3 people, Carl and 2 other people. And I'm not going to use their names, but I know who they are. And it was 3 people is how it started. You're not going to register as a 501c3 when all you got are 3 people and they're just, the dollar amounts that you're talking about are, hundreds of dollars. That's about it. So yeah, we got bigger. And like I said, at this point, we're up to about 750,000 in both donations and in-kind contributions. And that's stuff that is been processed to deliver to Ukraine. That's already been delivered, I meant to say. So we're still collecting donations. I've got 20 or 30K in uniforms that I'm organizing and inventorying for a new shipment. So it's always growing.
And the notion that the organization would be that it's a government-funded, non-governmental organization, an NGO.
It's a little weird.
Because the group was formed because you want to supplement government funding for Ukraine. You're not looking to attract a lot of government funding to then give to Ukraine through you.
I am not aware of any government funding grants that would be available to us because we're not in the category. So I mentioned like the National Endowment for the Arts would go to an orchestra or something like that. We don't fit the NEA grants. Sort of cultural grants that might be coming out of the State Department, that's not our thing.
Yeah.
Unless there's a government grant out there that can help us with some of our overhead costs, like printing flyers, or stuff like that, just Joe Basic, we need to have a banner made for a public event.
Seed money to cover expenses so that you can do the work to generate more. I get it. Right. Okay.
Unless there's something like that out there, that's the only possible category of a government funding source that I could think that would fit what we do. And if anybody has any ideas of something that might fit, I'm open to applying for that grant because, I'd be happy to get more money. And the grant application process, you can talk to any university professor or scientific researcher about the grant application process. And that's no joke. And it's real work. It takes you a while and a lot of sweat and a lot of late hours. But if anyone knows of one of those grants, I am happy to go through that to obtain even limited, like I would be happy with $1,000, So, yeah.
Sure. And, it is what it is. Even if you got some government money, again, it's kind of like, well, so what? Is that like a crime or is it a conspiracy? I don't understand the criticism. I don't get it.
Most grants are going to come with limits on how you can use that specific money. So that would be the only thing that, and that's true for private grants as well. If we get the Clooney Foundation to pull a name out of a hat. Or if I contact some other rich person and they're willing to give us money, they have every right to say, look, I'm going to give you this stack of money, but you have to use it the way I want you to use it. And as long as it fits our mission, then we would be legally obligated to follow those instructions. Yeah. But we can also refuse the money if it doesn't fit what we want to do. So,
and you don't have to agree with what you guys are doing. Nobody's being forced to donate if you don't.
I'm happy if you do. Go to our website.
Well, okay. What is the website? How do people?
It's just ukrainedefensesupport.org. It is not complicated.
Right. Okay. And, I have to say, it was the weirdest program I've ever been part of last night. And I just, because it ended up being a program about nothing at the end. And this is, for me,
except because nothing was deafening by its silence.
Yeah, it was an illustration of what censorship actually does.
Censorship and from a nation that none of us were actually physically in at the time.
Right.
I'm going to point that out.
It was bizarre, but it was so revealing for anybody that really was watching closely to understand what was going on last night. And so just to recap for people who maybe missed it, or maybe I'm going to explain this in a way that maybe was lost on people last night because it got weird. Kevin comes on, he's responding to your appearance on the program the night before. He takes issue with a lot of what you said. He launches into, his presentation. He has a different perspective. I'm happy to entertain that and provide the platform. And then he also takes issue with you and Carl from your organization, the organization itself. He attacks. You're in the chat. I offered to bring you in. He says he can't be on camera with you, but then says that he has free speech. Well, I mean, I know that if certain people appear on camera with him, it can be a problem for him being over in Crimea, especially depending on what is said. And I don't want to cause problems for him. But he says he has free speech. And then to show us that he has free speech, he uses the word war. And I know that up until a certain point, there was, the use of the phrase special military operation is what was preferred on the Russian side, maybe even mandated. I'm not sure what the laws might be around it, but then he says, there, see, I've got free speech and I use the word war. Okay. Well, hooray, I guess that's a victory for free speech because you can say the word war. It seems pretty restrictive still to me that you have to tiptoe around how you're describing a war. I don't have to worry about that here in Canada. I don't think you have to worry about it in the US. We have censorship problems of our own here, to be sure, but not like that. So then this is where things got weird, Mike. It's like finally... he says, okay, bring Mike on. And I'm not criticizing Kevin. I'm really just kind of laying out the situation for people. And this is what's so sad about what happened last night. Yeah, you can come on, but you're not allowed to talk about the war. You're not allowed to talk about any of the things that he was talking about. You can't even defend yourself against the accusations that were leveled last night while he's on the program with you. And so if there is free speech where he's at, then why can't we just have a free and open discussion? Now, I was grateful for you coming on because it shows that there's hope and we had, a friendly conversation, but it was a conversation that was weird. It was awkward because there were long pauses, because we were all being careful about anything that we were saying, because we didn't want to get Kevin in trouble. And I guess, I don't know, maybe even you. I don't know if you're facing any restrictions. To some degree, I guess you are, because you can't say political things because of your charitable status. But that isn't really so much of a censorship thing. I mean, really, it was these restrictions all around him that prevented me and prevented you from talking about certain things and prevented him from talking about certain things. And that's not his fault, but that's the reality of it. And so what did we end up talking about? Nothing even related to the program itself. We're talking about underwear, what kind of coffee you like, and what's your favorite food, which is really nice. And we're all making friends. And I think we left friends, but that is bizarre. That ends up being an assault on freedom of speech, which is what this platform is all about. It's about freedom of expression. This is a freedom platform. And that is what we got last night because of the censorship was the opposite of that. It was the ultimate expression of censorship imposed on us by fear of actually getting our friend in trouble because we want to be respectful to Kevin. And I don't know, I don't even know what I can say, so I better back off and be very, very careful with my words. And I think you were in the same position, and you respectfully came on, and you didn't jump in and start defending yourself, but it was also, it showed me how dangerous this is, because here you are accused of these things that we're addressing finally tonight, but you're not allowed to even defend yourself. So you get accused, all of this information is thrown at you to basically smear the organization, and that's really what it was in the end. It was a smear, and he's welcome to do that, but now to even have a conversation, you're not allowed to defend yourself. It was gross, and it was bizarre, and it was scary for me, because it showed me last night why I'm not moving from Canada. As bad as things are here, as terrible as things have become, I still have way more freedom here, because I can sit here tonight and say Justin Trudeau is the worst prime minister in Canadian history, and I'm not going to the gulag. But, and I can say war. I can say whatever the hell I want, really, as long as I don't break the law and defame someone or violate someone else's rights. But what happened last night was an aberration. It was a distortion of reality. It was not right. It was an illustration, I think, even to some degree, of why people in Ukraine are fighting.
It gives you an example of why Ukraine does not want to be ruled by Russia. Kevin is in Crimea. You're in Canada. I'm in the United States. Not a single one of us is living inside Russia. But that conversation, because you and I didn't want to get him in trouble, because why would you wish harm on somebody?
He's my friend. I don't want to. He's my friend.
And so he is in real danger, and what you say might affect his status, his personal well-being. And so that conversation was restricted by the totalitarian, oppressive rules and laws of Russia. And it was governing the speech of three people that were not in Russia. And it shows you how insidious this is and how it can cross borders and oceans and continents. And it was the information that was being broadcast through the absence of information being broadcast, I found deafening the entire conversation, is that if you are asking me, why support Ukraine? Why oppose Russia? That is something that is a prime example, and we lived it, and the audience members saw it. Maybe it wasn't as obvious to them as it was to me, because I've been to several nations that restricted what I could and could not do when I was there. because when you're there, you're an American citizen, but you have to comport yourself to local law. So if I'm in an Islamic nation, or if I'm in just a foreign nation, even if I'm just in France, I have to know what the local laws are. But I mean, there are restrictions. Free speech is never free. No freedoms are never free. Kind of like that thing of your right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins, because everybody has rights. And so you can't exert your rights so far that it tramples on other people's rights.
Well, for crying out loud, Mike, I mean, last night you were basically put on trial in the court of public opinion. The accusations were leveled at you, and then you were not allowed to defend yourself. You weren't able to, at least not in the presence of Kevin. Not because he wouldn't, be able to have a conversation with you about it. He wasn't allowed to. Yep. So that shows you there's no proper administration of justice there either. There's no due process. You're just convicted, man.
So if you were talking about the limits on my current speech, I chose those. When I decided to accept, I was offered a leadership position at Ukraine Defense Support after I retired from the U.S. Air Force. And by accepting that, I chose to accept the limits. That while I am publicly, like right here, I've got Ukraine Defense Support board member underneath my name. So while I am representing Ukraine Defense Support, I am limited by the laws that limit that group. And so I cannot advocate for or oppose a political candidate, a specific candidate, but I can advocate for causes. And that happens all the time with these charitable groups. So those causes might, the different candidates will favor or disfavor to different degrees, but it's the issue that I am speaking about and advocating for.
Yeah, and Candidate RV, Kevin is in Crimea, which is controlled by Russia, so he's bound by the laws that are in place there, and that's why we ended up in the situation we were in last night.
Yeah, Kevin is in Russian-occupied Crimea, which under international law is still part of Ukraine. That the international border of Ukraine, recognized by almost every nation on the planet, is that Crimea is part of Ukraine.
And I have nothing against Russia, really. It's a beautiful country. Kevin has been on the program talking
about... I'm a huge Shostakovich fan, I'm just going to say.
And some people even want to move there. And we talked about Putin fast-tracking, I guess short-term visas or whatever. I let Kevin come on and talked about that the other night. I'm not moving there. I don't have any desire to move to Russia. If other people want to, you're certainly welcome to. But for me, especially what happened last night, it just again reinforces for me why I'm not leaving this place. I do not want to leave my home. I love it here and I love my country. I don't have anything against Russia. I'm against the war. I don't want people dying, but you see my point, right?
Yep.
It's like there's way more freedom here.
Yep.
So
I don't know. I don't know where to go further from that. There's yeah.
And Candidate RV challenging us here, saying, isn't Crimea the ones who voted to be part of Russia?
If you talk about an election at the point of a gun, that's not an election. That election did not happen until Crimea was already occupied by a hostile foreign power that took the land by force, and the Russian laws already applied because the Russians were the occupiers, and you couldn't speak out against Russia, and if you tried to lobby against that vote, you could be thrown in jail or just disappeared. You might find yourself falling out of a 10th floor window, just by a total accident.
Well,
and so that election was not an election. It has not been recognized by anyone. Now, if Russia wants to go home, if they want to take their forces out of Crimea and take them back to Russia, and the people of Crimea can hold a free and fair election, then I don't know what the Constitution of Ukraine says, but that would be a different story.
Well, I try to keep an open mind. I saw what happened with the voting that took place in Crimea and later in the Donbass. But after what happened last night,
I will have you.
just
I will point out that there is partisan activity in all 4 of the current Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine: Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Crimea. There is organized partisan activity in all of those areas. Mariupol and Melitopol both have heavy partisan activity. Sevastopol has heavy partisan activity. These are Ukrainian citizens that are taking up arms against the Russian occupiers, in line with the partisan forces that fought Germany in World War II. And Polish had heavy partisan forces under occupation. France had the famous ones, at least from our perspective.
Yeah, and we have problems here too. There's no question about it. In the States, the
So
the chaos, surrounding elections right now is at unprecedented levels. Nevertheless,
in the United States, it's actually written into our Constitution that we're still a work in progress. One, we have elections. 2, part of our Constitution includes a procedure for the passage and repeal of new laws, vetoing laws, the passage and repeal of constitutional amendments. All of that implies that it's not perfect, and we will need to change from time to time. And even in the preamble, in order to form we the people, and in order to form a more perfect union. They didn't say in order to form the perfect place. They said a more perfect union, because we wanted it to be better than what it was under the Articles of Confederation. And now that we're under the Constitution, we're still trying to make it better. We still have arguments. That's the way a free society works. You have arguments. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. And that's the way it goes.
so yeah, Kevin, I guess, felt compelled to express his views on the things that you said the night before. So he kind of took you guys to task, and I mean, he leveled really attacks directed at you guys, kind of personally too, on at least some level. He didn't get really nasty, but it was, I don't recall you the night before targeting him, but
No. And if he and I want to have a discussion about facts, that's fine. I'm happy to have that conversation, because if somebody can point out to me where I'm wrong, that's information I kind of want,
Yeah.
and that I publicly solicit. So one thing he made me look up by what he said was the guidance system on the Shahed drones. And his characterization was incomplete would be a kind term for it. So he was taking me to task for saying that Shahed drones had analog inertial navigation guidance, which is absolutely true. He did make me look it up, that that they do have a simple it's not GPS, it's the GLONASS, the Russian version of GPS that's much more limited and much less accurate. The problem with that is that Ukraine jams GLONASS. GLONASS is not overly useful inside of Ukraine. Now, that is actually a lesson that we learned from Russia, because even before the 2014 invasion, because people forget that Ukraine and Russia have been at war for 10 years now. So back to 2014, and the big invasion is just what happened in 2022. They've been at war for 10 years. But Russia has been conducting GPS disruption services worldwide. It's big over by the Baltic states and Poland and Sweden, and they've lodged official complaints because this affects civilian air traffic. because airliners use GPS navigation, and disrupting that can cause direct harm and even death to civilians. And so if their GPS disruption actually did cause harm, then we would have a much more serious conversation going on. But we did learn 10, 15 years ago that Russia's ability to disrupt GPS navigation, GPS guidance was a serious threat, and we needed to figure out better ways around that. So more secure GPS data links is part of that equation. There's other stuff that can't really be talked about, and I'm not necessarily privy to anyway. So me talking about it wouldn't necessarily be an honest thing to do. So.
And I'm not trying to cause shit, and I might be confused. And you know what? When I'm wrong, I admit that I'm wrong. And the other night, Johnny, he called in and we were having a conversation. And then near the end, we were getting into this back and forth about whether Russia was okay with Ukraine joining the European Union or not. And there was a back and forth. And then he sent me some stuff, and I said the other night that I would have Johnny on to set me straight. And if I'm wrong, I'm always willing to acknowledge it and even apologize. So I'm going to call Johnny shortly, and if he wants to come on, and he can make me eat crow if he'd like to do that. So let me take a little break here, Mike, and I'm going to call up Johnny.
Okay.
And we'll see where that goes. Because he sent me a bunch of stuff, including a new video from RFK Jr., where he says that RFK Jr. has bringing the receipts, the proof about what's really going on in Ukraine.
Someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Help, Mike. You know that, eh?
Yeah. Okay. Just so you know, Johnny, you're live on the air now. So,
okay.
And Mike can hear you, but
hi, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm only trying to help you, Mike. I don't want to see no bad blood between anybody. And you're getting duped. If you look at the history of the U.S., you're getting duped. They go all over the place and cause all these wars, and then they get rich off it, and you get left holding the bag. That's my take.
Okay, so now you won't be able to hear Mike's response because of the way the phones are set up, but I'm going to let Mike respond to that.
So, that's a hot take.
He says that's a hot take.
Yeah.
So now you won't be able to hear Mike's response because of the way the
Oh, now he's listening to the feed. Which
Okay,
is a bit
I'll pull
delayed.
this away so that you don't get the feedback.
That's all right. It's one of those real-time evidences that the speed of light is finite because it went through enough that it caused that time delay. So, or as some of my physicist friends might say, the concept of simultaneous events is a fiction due to the speed limit of time. Anyway, speed limit of light. I'm sorry. So that's kind of a hot take about America when you're talking to somebody that served 22 years in the U.S. military. It's one of those things where it is true that the United States has been the dominant, and we like to say indispensable world power, certainly since 1945. You could argue since 1918. You could have a very strong case since 1945, and it's almost indisputable post 1990 that the United States is the dominant world power. Now that's changing now. China's coming back up. But being that sort of a power, we kind of, I don't know how to phrase this. That's not going to start a fight that I didn't intend. So, for instance, one of the mandates of the United States Navy is that it wants to ensure safe passage in international waters. And the reason for that is that international trade is one of the hallmarks of a free society. And the United States Navy, one of their reasons to exist is to protect the citizens, not just of the United States, but indeed the entire world, to be able to conduct trade free of hassle. We've been fighting pirates off the coast of Ethiopia for almost 20 years now. That's sometimes hard to rectify that there's still pirates going on right now, but there's some in Southeast Asia is a big pirate hotspot as well. But that's one of the things that we do. And when we use our wealth and our military strength to ensure peaceful trade, as one example, one of the benefits from that is that it creates wealth everywhere else in the world. So it's not just the United States. It's also China has benefited from the American use of its military to guarantee freedom. So Europe would have a big argument with your case about us starting wars. If you go to Normandy anytime around the 6th of June any year, they will tell you all about how America is a force for good in the U.S., in the world. There's all sorts of people that would disagree with you heavily on that hot take. Now, one of the aspects of the use of American force is that we don't, when we go, we give the land back. Does that make sense? The land that we still have nominally under American control in Europe are the American military cemeteries. Ain Marne is where the United States Marine Corps in one of the World War I battles earned the title Devil Dogs. It's when the U.S. Marines became the U.S. Marines in a lot of sense. It's sacred ground to U.S. Marines. They are buried, the dead from that battle are buried in the Ain Marne American Cemetery on the border of France and the Low Countries. The cemeteries in Normandy, the cemetery in Luxembourg where General Patton is buried, the cemetery in Tunisia where the North Africa Campaign KIAs are buried. That's the land that America still controls to a certain extent. We control it in coordination with the national governments, but that's where our war dead are buried. And that's all we asked when we liberated those nations, is that we wanted a place to bury our dead.
So, John,
yes,
and I did say that if I'm wrong, I admit when I'm wrong. So,
don't have to, but
well, no, I will acknowledge if I'm wrong.
That Kennedy video?
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, because I know that you sent it over. I have watched some of it. We're going to watch all of it in a minute. But the other night we kind of got our conversation cut short. What was it? We were in this thing about Putin. I said didn't want Ukraine to join the European Union. You said that he was okay with it. I'm going to let you comment on that.
BBC. I sent you proof by the BBC.
Okay.
Putin, he was going to look into it, make sure there's no military hitch to it. But They're already trading with the wheat with the European Union. They're already trading stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike, if he's listening,
I'm gonna address that.
Robert Kennedy is the only guy that I trust in Congress. They're all thieves in there.
Okay, we'll get to that, but back up. We got to. Yeah, we will. We will. Can you hear me, or you just keep? We will. We're going to get to the video in a minute. John. We're going to get to the video in a minute, but this was the thing we were talking about the other night. You said that Putin was okay with Ukraine joining the EU. It didn't matter to him.
Yes.
Well,
I heard Putin say that right out of his lips, and then I got you the proof from BBC. I sent it to you.
The proof is, John, from where I sit, the proof is that he said that overall he didn't have an issue sort of with the concept, but he wasn't sure about the advisability of it. That was his word. I'm not so sure about the advisability of that. And then you see, the thing is, he went way out of his way to make sure, or to try to prevent Ukraine from joining the European Union. That's why he came up with a $15 billion financial bailout for Ukraine in 2013. And the then president, Viktor Yanukovych, promised that he would sign an alternative deal with the European Union, which was only worth at the time, was less than $1 billion from the European Union, and it came with conditions. The thing is, one of the big conditions, you're worried about corruption, right? You think corruption's a big problem.
I don't trust people, yes.
Yeah, no, me too. I have a big problem with that. And do you know what one of the main conditions was that came with the European Union package?
What was that?
They required economic reforms and measures to combat corruption. That was the only way they were going to give the money to Ukraine at the time. The Putin plan, the Putin bailout package for $15 billion came with no strings attached, no conditions. Do you know what the interest rate was and the terms for repayment on that $15 billion bailout package were to Yanukovych at the time? Any idea?
No.
I'm not surprised. Do you know why? Because the terms of that were never made public. It was all done behind closed doors, a private deal between him and Yanukovych and maybe a few others. Nobody knows, John. And this was a $15 billion aid package that went to Ukraine, one of the most corrupt governments in the world, which is why the European Union, with its aid package, said, well, we'll help you out because you are in financial dire straits. We'll help bail you out, but you've got all these conditions. We're not going to lend you money or give you money unless you have economic reforms. The people and the government of the day said, yeah, we want to join the EU, even though there are all these restrictions and reforms that are going to be required. We'd rather join the EU because they saw joining the EU as being sort of a step toward modernization and a reinforcement of Ukraine's sovereignty in the face of Russian influence. Putin didn't want any of that. That's why he gave them $15 billion. And Yanukovych then went back on his promise to ratify the EU deal, which is what the government had approved and had promised the people, and he didn't do it. That's what led to the whole Maidan uprising, the massive protests in the streets. And even though Putin will tell you that it was a CIA-led coup, yes, there was American influence in there, no question about it. But I would say if it was a CIA-led coup, that's disputable. very debatable, and certainly has not been proven. But what we've really got here is two conflicting or two competing offers on the table. The people wanted to join the EU. Putin didn't want them to, and he went way out of his way. He went so far out of his way, John, to prevent them from joining the EU that he armed and funded separatist rebels up in the Donbass to foment unrest and instability, and lied his ass off about all of that, saying, we never funded those rebels, we didn't provide any weapons, and lied when he was funding them the whole bloody time. The whole time. And there's all kinds of evidence of that. So much so, John, that those rebel forces, even today, do you know what Putin has done for them? He's given them veteran status and has integrated them into the Russian military. And I can go on and on and on.
Well,
Nothing against you, man. Like, how would you know? Because they're not.
Blonde, that union, EU, that blonde lady there runs the EU. I heard her say, for Ukraine to join the EU, it's going to take at least 12 years. Okay, so like, don't think they're going to get in with a...
No. If they had signed that, and actually I think it was like around 700 million was the initial bailout package. And if Yanukovych, and it was eventually kind of ratified, but that was the beginning of an aid package that was fiscally responsible. Not just a $15 billion, no strings attached, here you go, Mr. Yanukovych, let me save your presidency, bailout thing. I'll tell you, you want to talk about corruption? What do you think happens to $15 billion when there's no transparency at all and you don't even know where the money's going, you don't know what the repayment terms are or anything else? What do you think he was really doing there? $15 billion for Yanukovych. And what happened to Yanukovych? Where'd he go? Where is he today?
I don't know. He's hiding somewhere.
He's in Russia.
I don't know.
He's in Russia.
He's not hiding. He's publicly in Russia.
Yeah, he's right there in Russia, man. Because he got a $15 billion bailout to save his presidency. So whose boy was Yanukovych? I'm just saying, like, and again, nothing against you. Like, how would you know? This stuff wasn't even made public, right?
Well, good luck joining the EU because you won't get in. That's
they can join the EU. Why not?
They won't get in.
Why?
They'll take 12
No,
years
you're
or
confusing
more.
the European Union with NATO. The European Union is
NATO's
EU.
a different animal.
Yeah, EU. The European Union.
Yeah, it takes 12 years to join the EU. That's what that blonde old lady said for the EU. I heard her say it. Whatever her name is.
The integration it's about doing trade. It's a trade deal.
But
that's what it was.
Right now with the wheat and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, because
But they're just not members.
because now they're aligned with the West.
But that's going to come to an end too. So.
Well, maybe not. We'll see.
Ukraine, I don't know if they're not seeing everything, but I'm advising Mike to send that Kennedy video to Zelensky and let him watch it over and over again. That guy's being honest. He's the only honest guy that I think.
Is he?
The most honest guy. Yeah, Kennedy's the most
well,
honest guy.
let's run some of the video right now. You've seen it, and Mike hasn't seen it.
Mike.
I've only watched about half of it. Let's watch the Kennedy video. This is on the Kennedy campaign website.
Only 5 minutes or something.
Sure, it's not long. Let's see what he's got to say.
Listen to it.
And maybe I'll stop it a little bit in between or whatever. But this is the truth. And you say that this is absolute proof, right? So I'm going to have to eat crow, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's crank it up.
This is a war that should have never happened. It's a war that Russians tried repeatedly to settle on terms that were very, very beneficial to Ukraine and us. The major thing they wanted was for us to keep NATO out of the Ukraine. The big military contractors want to add new countries to NATO all the time. Why? Because then that country has to conform its military purchases to NATO weapon specifications, which means certain companies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, and Lockheed, get a trapped market. In March of 2022, we committed $113 billion. Just to give you an example, we could have built a home for almost every homeless person in this country. We then committed another $24 billion since then, 2 months ago, and now President Biden is asking for another $60 billion. But the big, big expenses are going to come after the war, when we have to rebuild all the things that we destroyed. Mitch McConnell was asked, can we really afford to spend $113 billion to Ukraine? He said, don't worry. It's not really going to Ukraine.
It's going to American defense manufacturers.
So he just admitted it's a money laundering scheme. And who do you think owns every one of those companies? BlackRock. So Tim Scott, during the Republican debate, said, don't worry, it's not a gift to Ukraine, it's a loan. So raise your hand if you think that that loan's ever getting paid back. Yeah, of course it's not. So why do they call it a loan? Because if they call it a loan, they can impose loan conditions. And what are the loan conditions that we impose on? Number one, an extreme austerity program, so that if you're poor in Ukraine, you're going to be poor forever. Number two, most important, Ukraine has to put all of its government-owned assets up for sale to multinational corporations, including all of its agricultural land, the biggest single asset in Europe. In Ukraine, there's been 1,000 years of war fought over that land. It's the richest farmland in the world. It's the breadbasket of Europe. 500,000 kids almost, Ukrainian kids, have died to keep that land as part of Ukraine. They almost certainly didn't know about this loan condition. They've already sold 30% of it. The buyers were DuPont, Cargill, and Monsanto. Who do you think owns all of those companies? Yeah, BlackRock. And then in December, President Biden gave out the contract to rebuild Ukraine. And who do you think got that contract? BlackRock. So they're doing this right in front of us. They don't even care that we know anymore, because they know that they can get away with it. And how do they know that? Because they have a strategy. And that strategy is an old strategy, which is they keep us at war with each other. They keep us hating on each other. They keep the Republicans and Democrats fighting each other, black against white, and all these divisions that they sow. If you like this video and you want to learn more about me and the movement that we're building, please go to Kennedy24.com.
Okay. I'll let you comment first. Go ahead, John.
If you like this video and you want to learn more, who, me?
Yeah, you want to comment on the Kennedy video?
He's bang on, this guy. He's telling you how it is. Not too many people will do that, but he's telling you what it is.
I told... Oh, okay, yeah. We're getting duped. What's black... Again,
there, Mike.
John.
There's no free lunch. I don't know where you're coming from, but there's no free lunch.
Well, that's for sure. But there would be for Putin. Then I'll explain what the free lunch for Putin would be in very much the same way that it was a free lunch for Stalin during his reign of terror. Let me explain. What did we agree on the other night? What kind of company is BlackRock?
They're asset manager.
Right. And what did Kennedy just say, Mr. Truthful? What did he say about Northrop Grumman and Cargill?
They're all owned by BlackRock.
They're all owned by BlackRock. That's a lie.
Well, BlackRock's probably got a lot of investment in them.
They own maybe 5-6%. In some cases, they are among the largest shareholders of some of these kinds of companies, but they don't ultimately control those companies on their own. They don't have enough voting power. And even if they do have a large block of voting power, it's not ultimately in the hands of BlackRock. It's in the hands of the individual shareholders and institutional investors who buy a variety of financial products, who then BlackRock votes on their behalf in their interests in the way that they want to be voted. And that is the people. That's not BlackRock per se. That's, again, they are an asset management company. Now, if you want to exert control over a company, what you need to do is you need to buy stock. I'm sure you own some stock. And if you want to control Tesla, then you buy a large block of shares in Tesla as an individual. And then you can go in there and you can vote in your shareholders meeting to exert pressure and control the company if you have the controlling interest in the company.
That's what they do. They buy
No,
their shares.
they don't. But they don't have a controlling interest in the. No, they don't. You can't control a company, John, with 5 or 6% of the shares, especially when it's divided up among the different shareholders.
You're making that out of your
I am
head.
not making it out of my head. You can look it up.
Anyhow,
I just looked it up. BlackRock.
Okay.
Mike just looked it up. Go ahead, Mike.
The BlackRock owns a 6.3% share of Northrop Grumman.
Nobody's going to give you
BlackRock, he just looked it up, and you can look it up. All the people at home can look it up too, John. BlackRock owns 6.3% of Northrop Grumman.
What does Ukraine have that the U.S. government's going to give them $113 billion for nothing? Like, what is it?
Can I answer that one?
Yeah, okay. Mike has an answer for you.
You want to know what Ukraine has that he wants to know what Ukraine has that is worth the United States investing money, billions, hundreds, tens or hundreds of billions of dollars.
He's answering.
And the answer that I have is that Ukraine has over 40 million people that deserve to live and who want to live in freedom. And that's what Ukraine has that has earned the American attention, the American help, is 40 million people. What are 40 million human beings who want to live in freedom worth?
I've got something for you to chew on here, John. And I love you, man. So this is a good debate and it's a good discussion because I want you to think about it in the other way. Okay. Just consider this.
We're going to give them $113 billion. Only Ukraine. All the other starving countries, we don't give them nothing.
Well, that's not true. That is really not true. The United States and Canada, we send aid all over the world. That is one of the biggest issues in Canada. John, just a moment. A lot of people in Canada, especially on the conservative side, take real exception with the foreign aid packages that the federal government here.
I'm not the one living in Ukraine that are going to be poor all my life.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you think? How much when Putin takes over Ukraine? If he's successful with his special military operation, really? Well, how much did he pay? How much did he pay for the Donbass or Crimea? What did he pay for that? Zero. Why? Because he took it by force. He paid nothing.
You know what? If they settled right from the start, you wouldn't have taken it by force.
You know what? In that video, it says that 30% of all the farmland has been sold, right?
Well, I don't know. That's what Kennedy says.
Yeah, well, you said he's super truthful, right?
I trust Kennedy.
Are you familiar? You trust him? Well, maybe this might change your view just a little bit because I liked Kennedy for quite a while, but the more I dig into this stuff, the more I see things that make me question what the hell is really going on. Are you familiar with the moratorium reform law passed in 2020 in Ukraine? Do you know why what he says can't be true? Because they have a law in Ukraine that prevents that. It prohibits it. Until, I think it was 2020 or 2021, Ukraine would not allow foreign ownership of their farmland at all. Now, in order to facilitate investment in the country and in the agribusiness industry, they did make some changes in 2020 or 2021 that will allow some foreign investment, but there are severe restrictions on that, and you can't actually own the land as a foreign entity, not even a foreign company. It's prohibited. They can't sell the farmland. So when Kennedy is,
how are they going to pay the money back?
Because here's what Kennedy's also not telling you, because I don't think he even knows. He's just regurgitating some stuff that people wrote into a script for him. That much to me is becoming painfully obvious. All right. So how they're going to pay the money back? I'll tell you this. What you're not hearing is the companies that have invested money in Ukraine are companies like Cargill and DuPont, and yes, even BlackRock through their investment tools. But they only own, in any of these cases, again, somewhere around like 5% of this, and they don't even actually own it. Because hang on just a minute. Through productivity, John. But let me explain this. They don't own the land. At best, they're leasing it because that's what the law provides for. So foreign companies can invest in Ukrainian companies, but the Ukrainians own it.
So they're paying it back by leasing it.
They have lease agreements, but it's not owned by American companies or any foreign entities. They have lease agreements in place for specific periods of time.
A lot of money, Rick. A lot of money.
Well, John, do you want the facts, or do you just want to believe what you want to believe?
What about that Mitch guy? Hear what he said, and that black guy.
Yeah.
Hear what he said?
The
money's
black
not
guy?
going to Ukraine.
The black guy? What the hell does that mean? The black guy.
They're lying. They're all lying.
They're lying.
All of them are lying. They're all liars.
They're all
Kennedy,
liars. Well, that's
Mitch
no.
McConnell,
I'm giving you specific. I'm giving you specific information, my friend. Very detailed, specific information. I'm even giving you the exact piece of legislation that proves unequivocally that what he is telling you in that video is not true. And I'd love for him to be accurate, because I kind of like him. And he's on the Trump team, and I'm a conservative, right? But facts are facts are facts, and we're never going to get back to peace. We're never going to get to a place of truth unless we start dealing with truth. And everything that I saw in that video, practically, I don't know if everything is, there's maybe some seed of truth in it, but that was just a pack of weirdness. It's not true at all. And you're not going to hear that, folks, anyplace else, because nobody's taken the time to dig into it.
Channel, and the guy's very smart. And
Yeah.
He's a big Trump fan, big Trumper, and he says, that's what the war in Ukraine is all about.
Yeah, because he's being duped.
That's
Like
what
a
the
lot
war
of
in
people are
Ukraine's
being
all
duped
about.
by
Now,
RFK's video.
Actually, you can go back and watch it. Last night he said that.
Well,
Last night,
I honestly, John, I really
where I
don't.
got that video
I
from.
don't care what some other guy on some other video said. What I care about is facts, and I just gave you. And man, you're my friend. So, look, I'm trying to help you see through.
I don't
through
need
this.
no help because I don't live in Ukraine, and I'm not going to be poor all my life.
They're not going to be poor all their life. Do you know? Because do you know why? Because investment is what is used to develop. Investment is what is used to create. That's why they need investment. And it's also a lie to say that austerity programs will lead to the Ukrainian people being poor forever. Do you know what an austerity program
The
is?
chat's all against you, Rick.
I don't give a shit
There's a lot of smart people. This chat,
I don't care, because the trolls are out in full force tonight. I don't care. I care about facts. Go ahead, trolls. Go ahead, attack. I'm just giving you the facts, man.
There are people that are on there every night.
I know they're my friendly
And you
trolls.
call them trolls?
Some of them. Yeah, I see a couple of semi-regulars who come back just to attack. You know that very well. Here, I'll put my most friendly irregular troll up. Canada RV. I don't believe anyone, but if you had to believe someone, it would be JFK. He's freaking dead, dude. Okay, he ain't coming back, so it doesn't matter.
Can I jump in really
Yeah,
quick
sure.
on
Go ahead, Mike.
the
You go
JFK
ahead.
thing?
The JFK thing.
So it was
Hang on,
interesting.
John, don't go anywhere.
It was interesting listening to RFK Jr. talk about why don't we spend
Hey, Christina, I don't care. You don't have to watch. I love you, Christina. And, you've been a friend and everything, but I don't care. You come here, you get the truth. You get facts. You get the facts. That's what it is. Go ahead, Mike.
No, it's all right. So JFK, one of the things he's most famous for is before this decade is out, we are going to send a man to the moon and return him alive. Right, his big moonshot. He was the start of the Apollo program that landed the first people on the moon. And back then, they're like, why are we spending all these gobs and piles of money on sending people to the moon when we have poor people back home? And that sort of thinking, and it's just bizarre hearing it coming out of a Kennedy because of what JFK did. They would attack the Apollo program in the same way. Is that why are we spending money on that when we have these problems? And it's when you're talking about quality of argument and convincing argument, fallacious thinking is not the way to go. And this is a prime example of a false dichotomy. It's not a binary choice. You can do both. The wealthiest nation on the planet can do many things at the same time. We're not just helping Ukraine. At the same time, we have a multi-billion-dollar investment in infrastructure. We've got just all sorts of the other programs that we do. And the false dichotomy it blows my mind whenever people bring that kind of stuff up. And for a Kennedy to bring up that sort of a thing when that was precisely the manner of poor thinking and fallacious logic that they try to use against the Apollo program, and then it's coming out of a Kennedy now, that's just kind of bizarre. So that's just my 2 cents.
So, again, John, I mean, the facts are the facts are the facts are the facts, and prove me wrong.
You think what you want?
No, I don't think what I want. I go and I get facts, and then I form my opinion based on that. And my opinions on things do evolve and shift over time based on changing information and how much information that I have. And again, like all the people who are upset with me tonight, prove me wrong. Am I wrong? Is that law regarding foreign ownership of farmland in Ukraine not true? So who's telling the truth, me or RFK Jr.?
Mitch McConnell. He's telling the truth.
Mr. McConnell's telling the truth? What did he say? Let me just bring up his clip.
That money is not going to Ukraine.
What did he say? Oh, he says it's going to the companies, right?
Yeah, probably somewhere.
Yeah, it's going back to the U.S. There's truth in that because there is truth in that. I don't like it when they say that because it sounds distasteful.
And he's a Democrat. A Republican and a Democrat said the same thing.
But there is truth in that because when you give the money to Ukraine, then that money is spent.
It's not going to Ukraine, that money.
It comes back to the companies that produce.
It comes back to the states like they've done with all these other countries.
Can I jump in on that?
And Mike wants to address that because Kennedy calls that a scam, a money laundering scam. It's not a scam, but go ahead, Mike.
So when the United States had stockpiles of weapons available for the American military use, because that's what you do. You have to build the weapons, otherwise you don't have a credible military. When Ukraine needed weapons, we could not build them from scratch. So from first cut steel to a brand new F-16 takes roughly 12 months, give or take. So if you're like, we want to give F-16s to Ukraine, well, if you're going to build them a brand new one, it's at least 12 months away. And that's going to be true for a lot of things. So what happened is when we sent Patriots and ammunition, artillery ammunition and uniforms and armored vests and Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and all the rest that we sent them, what we did is we sent them existing U.S. military stuff. And then what happens is the United States military no longer has that stuff. So the dollars, a significant portion of the dollars in those Ukraine bills, it's usually around half to 2/3, is going to restock the U.S. military from the weapons and other items that we sent to Ukraine. Now, the rest of the money that is not being spent in that way, then that is stuff that's going directly to Ukraine. We spent several $billion helping them either rebuild their infrastructure, especially their power and water, from Russian attacks. So that's dollars directly going into Ukraine. And there's significant amounts of those dollars as well. But yeah, when you're talking about weapons, that you don't build brand new weapons, and just that there's a time lag involved here. So there's significant amount of the American aid to Ukraine is going to replenish the U.S. military stock. And so is it going to the companies? Well, kinda. What it really is that the companies years ago built these weapon systems. The United States military had them in its possession. Then we sent those existing weapons to Ukraine, but then the U.S. military needs to refill its stocks. So that's kind of what we're doing. Now that we've expanded several ammunition plants, for instance, the one in Carbondale, Illinois, is a General Dynamics plant that makes various caliber of ammunition, including the caliber that goes to the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. That's one of the rounds that they make. They greatly expanded their artillery shell production over the last 2 years. So they expanded the plant, more American jobs, all that kind of stuff. But the expansion of industrial capability means that plant is now able to produce ammunition and send it directly to Ukraine, where part of the ability to help Ukraine, we realize that our factories, when you're talking like World War II arsenal democracy, all the weapons that we sent to the Brits to help fight the Battle of Britain, it's that kind of a stuff that we needed to expand our ability to do that. So some of that went to that, and we are finally now in a place where we can build at least ammunition and send it in relatively short time frames to Ukraine, and that it took this long to build up our ability to do it.
Hey, John.
Yeah,
I'll give you this, okay? We're both against Nazis, right?
Well, as long as they're not over here, I don't really care.
You don't care? Well, you said that you don't like the Ukrainian Nazis, like the Azov battalion, right? Which we agree on.
No, Putin didn't like them.
Putin didn't like them, but you're okay with the Nazis?
And he called them all out. So, like, nobody knew they were there till Putin started telling everybody.
But, it was a big, yeah, I would say that people over here certainly maybe not aware.
I just hope it works out for them, that's all, because I'm not, I got no game in this thing, I know some of my taxes go there, but I know we're screwed. We're not going to get a penny back, but the Americans are going to get all their money back, right? That's what they do.
Let me stay focused on this, because again, you've told me that you don't like those Ukrainian Nazis, right? You've told me that.
This is a pretty low bar. Sorry.
I don't. As long as they're not in my backyard, I don't really care.
You don't really care.
No, as long as they're not in my backyard, I don't care.
Because you know why Putin wants to finish the job in Ukraine, right? Because he wants to denazify it.
Well, I think he's already done that. I don't see any more on their emblems on their shirt unless they're hiding it.
Oh.
I don't see flags. I don't see nothing anymore. I was in the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
They were all over the place. You showed them every night. You were showing.
Yeah, because I don't like it, right? And so the Azov battalion.
Now you don't show them no more. How come?
Well, I'm going to show you some right now. So maybe this will make you care.
Current?
Yeah, current. Yep.
Oh, okay.
June 11th, right there. There's some Nazi dudes, and go down. So there's a Sonnenrad, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So we got to deal with that. And then these guys here, they also have Nazi symbols on their uniforms. There's another Nazi Sonnenrad on that guy's uniform right there. So you still got some work to do, I'd say, eh?
So what do Ukrainians think about this?
Well, you know, I guess it depends on which side you're on, because these particular soldiers with these Nazi symbols on their uniforms, they happen to be fighting on the Russian side. And we're there to, they have been part of the rebel separatist fighting units up in the Donbass, which Russia has been funding and arming, which Putin denied, and said that they weren't. And that's pretty weird, isn't it? Because, you know, what were those Minsk Accords about? What were the requirements of the Minsk Accords, which Kevin mentioned last night?
I don't really follow that.
Yeah, but we shouldn't we? Because if we're going to take strong positions and talk and
that's all.
Yeah.
All I'm telling you is that Ukrainians are getting duped, and they don't see it.
I don't know. I'm not so sure because if they're the ones getting duped and we're getting duped, how come we weren't hearing about the Nazis fighting on the Russian side? Groups like the Rusich, the Verag, the even the Wagner group has ties to neo-Nazi ideology.
I could probably believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so here you've got Putin justifying his military invasion of Ukraine by saying that they need to denazify Ukraine, when in reality they have more, I repeat, more neo-Nazi and outright Nazi groups fighting on the Russian side than Zelensky's military force, which has the Azov battalion.
Someone's saying, how come Freeland's banned from Russia?
What's that?
Freeland. How come she's banned from Russia? Because
oh, well, because she was a real thorn in his side. Yeah, she was a thorn in Putin's side. Yeah, no question about that.
That's probably why, too, yeah.
Well, she absolutely was. She still is.
Listen, I'm not here to stir up shit, Rick.
I'm told I am. I'm told I'm here to stir up shit. Somebody even wrote it down that way.
All I'm saying is...
I know, man.
That don't think it's all rainbows and whatever.
It's not. It's terrible. It's what's going on.
You're going to have to pay this money back one way or the other.
Well, that's the other thing, okay?
Mitch O'Connell, the black guy, Kennedy, they're telling you, this is not a free ride.
No, it's not. It never is. Freedom isn't free. And yeah, you know how it's all going to get paid back? The RFK Jr. video, which regurgitates this anti-American, anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist rhetoric, far left rhetoric. Trump was right when he called RFK basically a communist. Okay, but now he's on the Trump team, so everybody's dialing that back. But the reality is, yeah, it's got to be paid back. But he's saying that it's through austerity, which will make the Ukrainian people poor forever, which is not true, because they've had the Rebuilding Ukraine conference just recently, and you saw members of the EU sit there and commit funding for Ukraine to rebuild. And again, the anti-American, anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist pundits out there and influencers would have us believe that it's going to just enrich BlackRock, when in reality, it's a variety of tools, financial tools, and investments that will ultimately end up rebuilding Ukraine. Do you have any idea what the range of tools would include?
What?
It would include some loans. It would include as well some straight up grants coming from the European Union, the United States, Western countries. The governments have committed to just giving them outright billions of dollars so that they don't enslave the people of Ukraine, to assist them in rebuilding and becoming a productive society again. And in addition to that, if the West is successful, if Ukraine prevails in the conflict, then seized assets from Russia would also be used, would be directed back into Ukraine to facilitate the rebuilding of the country. So it's a variety of things. It's not just BlackRock going in and buying up everything for pennies on the dollar. In fact, I would suggest to you that quite the opposite would happen if Russia prevails, because they will go in, they will take the land for free by force, giving the people nothing, and then Putin will do what Russia has done in the past, and they will take that land, and it will be divided up among the Russian oligarchs for pennies on the dollar, if that, and that money will go not to Ukraine but to Russia.
No.
That's what will happen if Russia wins the war.
You never know. I don't.
Well, why else take it by force? Why not just buy it then?
I don't trust Putin.
Well, I don't trust him either.
Yeah, but
we shouldn't.
All I'm saying is, how many people are left in Ukraine right now?
Oh, John, you're asking me on,
Does Mike know?
You're asking me for a stat.
I tried to find that out, and it's very hard. Very hard.
Yeah, it's very hard in the fog of war to find out a number like that. I don't know.
They've gone everywhere in the world.
Yeah, well, once the war is over, they'll come home when they're not going to get bombed.
I'm hearing no. I'm hearing
some
no.
people will, some people won't, but the country is still there.
You might get some coming back, yes, but.
Well, regardless.
But the thing is.
Look, man,
look at history. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
I do look at the history, and I see the pain and the suffering that the Ukrainian people have endured.
Ukraine. Look at all the other world wars, the histories.
I have looked at that too.
Yeah, it's all a game to get rich, to get wealth back, to be number one.
Well, if you believe in the protocols of the Elders of Zion and Mein Kampf and anti-Semitic tropes that would have us all believe that it's Jews like Larry Fink who control the world, when in fact they only own like maybe 5 or 6% of particular companies, when it's not really true.
What's the matter with you, man?
What do you mean, what's the matter with me?
Look how much the company's worth. They didn't get that from a couple of small investors like you. Your whatever you invest, the BlackRock.
That's right. They got it from institutional investors, which is pension funds.
I think $12 trillion.
Yeah, and do you know why it's that much money? Let me explain why. Because BlackRock is the ultimate expression of collective individualism as expressed through capitalism. And it is so freaking efficient. It works so well that company has exploded with nothing but prosperity and wealth, which has enriched the people in one way or another who have invested in it through pension funds. And that is why that the American people and others who have investments with BlackRock have great pension funds. Why do you think Trump stands up there and says, "How is your pension fund doing?" at his rallies? Because it's all about that. And that is why the people on the other side, the anti-colonialists, the anti-capitalists, that's why they get so bent out of shape, because BlackRock is like wildly successful. And it's an affront to communism, socialism, economic collectivism. They don't like that because it shows that it works. They don't want that. They want to tear it down. They want to demonize it. And that's why BlackRock has become a metaphor for the United States, for Israel, for capitalism.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope.
Well, prove me wrong, man.
They win in the end, but I don't think it's going to work out for them. I think this is another take. Someone's getting rich off it, and I don't think Ukraine's the one getting rich off this. That's all.
Well, they're certainly not getting rich off it right now, that's for sure. But I mean, they're caught in the crosshairs, and that's just because of where they sit geographically. That country, John, has been used as a doormat, for since I don't know when, man, by different countries to go in Russia and out of Russia, and by Russia to go in and out over there. The Ukraine caught between the East and the West, and they sit right in the middle, and they've got very, very valuable assets, strategically and economically, and that's why Putin wants Ukraine, just like the West wants Ukraine. The difference is Putin's doing it with the military, and the West is doing it by trying to integrate them into their economic system, offering them a pathway to participation in the European Union and the Western economy, and then maybe even ultimately through NATO, which, we've had discussions about that, and I don't think that's wise. It wasn't wise to start talking about that stuff because it gave Putin further, I guess, reason, not justification, but reason to do what he's been doing. But, that's the reality of it. And nothing, in my view, and I think even in the view of anybody who's got an accurate bead on international law, nothing has justified Putin going in there with military.
Listen to this. Listen to this, Rick. Okay, listen to this.
Yeah.
Every country that the U.S. invaded with a world war or helped, how are they doing today? Besides Israel.
Actually, they're doing great. A lot of them are doing great. You just take a look at Japan. Japan, World War II.
Yeah, Japan's doing good.
They're doing great. Well, who rebuilt Japan? The United States.
And how much money does states own Japan? That's where they get all their money from.
No, if Japan was under the thumb economically of the United States, then even back in the 1970s, when Lee Iacocca was expressing concerns about the Japanese imports coming in and undermining the integrity of the American auto industry, none of that would have been going on at the time, and Chrysler wouldn't have had to make deals with even companies like Mitsubishi to put Mitsubishi Japanese engines in their Chrysler products.
Iraq, what other places did the states invade? Iraq, Jamaica, down south.
Even Iraq, even Iraq, not as cut and dried as people would have you believe. I was alive when the war in Iraq erupted. I was working as a reporter at the time with CTV. I covered some of that domestically here. And while I don't agree with a lot of what went on, I also understand that it was complicated. And the reasons for that, and it's not simply, I know that the narrative being spun up today is quite easy to sell to people because people have short memories, and a lot of the people are too young to even remember what the hell really went on back then. But, Saddam Hussein was no saint. And well, there is some assertion here that no weapons of mass destruction were ever found. In reality, if you go back and you watch his videos, he'll say, well, we don't have the weapons of mass destruction anymore. And if you go back a little bit further, he actually did possess chemical weapons prior to that, which he had actually used against the Kurds. So there was a lot of concern within the public at that time that maybe he did possess chemical weapons or weapons of mass destruction. But Scott Ritter never talks about that. And I remember sitting there saying, well, why doesn't Saddam Hussein just let those weapons inspectors in and just let them do whatever they want to do so that he can avoid the invasion? But he never did that. He always said, well, I have to defend my sovereignty. And then he kind of used, vague language at times, which it kind of made people think, well, maybe he does have those weapons of mass destruction, which he didn't do himself any favors that way. But he was trying to rattle the saber. You know why? Because he miscalculated, sir. He miscalculated, and it cost him everything. He thought that Russia, Soviet Union, would come to his aid. But they didn't. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia at the time didn't have the resources to come to his aid anyway. So he was way wrong on his strategy, never should have gone with the rhetoric that he went with at the time. And while in the end, the U.S. didn't have justification to go in because they didn't have the weapons of mass destruction, I'm not so sure that it's as cut and dried as Scott Ritter would have us believe. It's just not freaking true. And Mike served in Iraq, and I don't know what he's going to say. Maybe he's going to tell me that I'm out to lunch, and maybe I'm totally wrong on that. But maybe do you want to listen to what Mike has to say about it? I'm getting a little agitated, just a little bit. Just a bit.
Who?
You go
Iraq.
first.
What other country? Vietnam.
You keep groping. You keep looking for justification to demonize and make the United States out to be evil, and I'm sure that it's going to go to, we're responsible for every bad thing that ever happened to ourselves. It's always our own fault. Victim blaming, more victim blaming, victim blaming. I'm so freaking tired of that.
We're responsible for every bad thing that ever happened.
Do you want to add something, or are we going to let Mike talk for a sec?
Be careful. That's all I got to tell you.
What's that?
We're gonna let Mike talk. Be careful. That's all I got to tell you.
Oh, be truthful. Okay. All right. Let's let Mike talk. I'm going to pull the phone away so we don't get the delay. Go ahead, Mike.
So yeah, this guy's a lot of whataboutism. So when you're talking about arguments that don't work, and when you start to think about them, and you're like, wait, what? So whataboutism is one of those things when people know that they lost. That they lost on the merits, what about this? And then they start to deflect and distract and go on to other things in an attempt to change the conversation in ways that are more of a parallel thing. The central question that we're talking about right now in this moment in time is what the fate of Ukraine is going to be. And if you're wanting to look for historical precedents, in terms of people that we helped, you brought up some of them. What did the United States get from all of the stuff that we basically gave to the British? And people aren't aware of this, but there were some people aren't aware of this. The Free French and the Free Polish forces that fought mainly under the British flag, because they joined up after Poland and France fell, but before the United States joined. But the Free French forces primarily used American weapons. A French tank unit was using American Sherman tanks, for instance. So what did we get from all of that money that we gave to the British and to the French and the Belgians and the Danes? What did we get from that? Well, we got a free Europe. We defeated the Reich. We got an entire continent of nations that live free and have vibrant cultures and economies that we can be friends and partners and allies, and we can work together with them and we can help each other out. So we gained quite a bit. Japan was the same thing. When you're talking about, well, what about some of the newer stuff? People don't they never read about it, and they're like, well, World War II ended in 1945. Well, yeah, that's when fighting more or less stopped. But when did Germany and Japan start to become free nations that were able to provide for their own citizens? Does anyone remember that? Does anyone study that? It was the mid-1950s. It was after the Korean War ended. Well, ceasefire. So the Germans and the Japanese didn't start ruling themselves until the mid-1950s. And it took a while to rebuild them because the devastation was so hard. But it takes time. It was worth the effort. Now we have a very wide-ranging group of nations that work together and support each other, and sometimes they struggle, but that's what free people do. So what would we get out of Ukraine? We'd get a free nation that could join the rest of the world's group of free nations. They'd be able to join the group that includes Japan and the United States and Canada and Germany and the UK and Norway and all of these places that are just vibrant, free cultures in the modern world. And that's what Ukraine wants. That's what they wanted since the Maidan Revolution, and before that it was either 03 or 04, their Orange Revolution. They've tried more than once. Early 1990s was also a struggle that they didn't quite make. A lot of the Ukrainians in the United States left Ukraine in the early 1990s, especially over religious persecution. The most common Ukrainian in the United States left in the early 1990s because they were some version of Protestant. So it's one of those things. Ukraine was not free, and they want to be free. They desperately want to be free. They desperately want to join the group of nations in the world that are free. They want to join the free world. That's what we're after. Those are the stakes. And what would we get out of this? It's kind of a bargain. 40 million people. He was asking for numbers. Before the war, Ukraine had roughly 44 million people. Best guess, they still have 40 million in the country. It might be more than that. It might be 42. So some of these are just rough guesses, best educated guess. And you're going to get all those people. It's roughly California, maybe somewhere in between Texas and California. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of wealth that's possible. That's a lot of smart people, a lot of artists, a lot of inventors, a lot of writers, a lot of journalists, a lot of people that would be able to contribute in very real ways and very productive ways to the rest of the free world.
So some delay there still on the audio, but John, man, I love you. What go ahead. What do you think? Go.
I hope he's right. That's all. But I'm just trying to help. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to. I like Ukraine. I like the people. Okay.
Yeah.
They're hard workers. We have them here. I don't have no problem with them. But I look at the history, and that's what I'm trying to tell them. I look back at the history. All the countries that U.S. invaded, look at them today. They're all poor. Except for a couple. Yeah, a couple. Yeah.
Except for most of them, you mean?
That's all I'm trying to say. But
I don't think that.
Right.
I don't think that's really true, John.
Well,
Even in Iraq, what does Trump complain about? He says in Iraq we should have taken the oil, but they didn't.
They're buying it for like next to nothing right now.
What? It goes on the market. It goes on the open market, and it sells at market value. It's a commodity.
So you're saying they don't benefit from nothing from Iraq right now?
The United States, I don't think they benefited at all. In fact, I think Iraq cost the United States not just blood and treasure, but reputation, because there's been so much negativity and negative PR, if you will, that came out of that it's damaged the United States beyond measure.
Look at Kuwait.
What
you
about?
think they're not getting deals on oil? Huh? Libya. I don't know. Salvador. They raided all these places. Lebanon.
It's not about getting deals on the oil, John. It was never about getting deals. It was about stabilizing the economy, and that's why they had the deal with Saudi Arabia to make sure that all oil purchased was purchased in U.S. dollars, because the U.S. dollar had become, after World War II, the world reserve currency. Why is that? Why is it important to maintain stability of that? When it's the world reserve currency, the entire world depends on the stability of it.
It's the U.S. currency, Rick, not the world.
It's the world reserve currency. That's why it's universally traded all over the world.
If the petrodollar falls tomorrow, U.S. falls also.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not just the U.S., man. If that happens, it will plunge the world into economic chaos.
The world depends on the U.S. Canada, everything we buy is from the U.S. pretty well. You know?
China. Everything I look at is made in China.
I miss the cheap prices from pasta prices from Ukraine. We used to get big pack of spaghetti for like 69 cents. Now we're paying over $2.
Yeah, I know. It's
because
inflation.
Of this shit. Look at the oil. We used to get oil from Russia, cheap, dirty oil. We used to pay like under $1. Now we got to pay. Look at the gallon. Look, I don't know what it works out to $6-7 a gallon. Come on, man. And who's causing all this?
Justin Trudeau and his economic policies and the high taxation and the carbon tax. And it goes on. And this tax and that tax, the sales tax, the gas tax, the road tax, the tire tax.
runs the world, Rick. The U.S., they're number one. They got two rules.
They are. And you know what they call that? There's an old, there's an,
stay number one.
they are number one. And you know what comes with being number one? Do you know what comes with being number one? It's called the penalty of leadership. No, it's true. It's called the penalty of leadership. There's an old.
They're up to their head right now.
You look it up. You look it up. Look
China
it up.
And Iran. Those three. You noticed Iran, China, and Russia. They've all ganged up on the states.
No kidding. Somebody's waking up.
And you know the population of those three countries? The technology.
Well, I guess we're doomed because I guess they're going to overrun us.
The BRICS, you know, in about another 5 years, I don't think the states will be number one anymore. But I hope they will be because I'm their neighbor. But I don't know.
It doesn't sound like you want them to be.
No, I do want them to. I loved America. I like going over there on holidays. I like a lot of the students that come here.
I love the U.S. I love America.
Our neighbors. And Russia's our neighbor too, by the way. Russia's our other neighbor.
It gets really cold when you go north over the poles.
We got two neighbors.
A little difficult.
Ukraine's got China. They got a lot of neighbors too. Ukraine. And
yeah, you know what kind of neighbor Russia has been lately. You know that there's this big dispute over who controls the Arctic seaways, right? And Russia asserted basically a giant land claim up there, challenging Canada's sovereignty in the Arctic. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's not as long as we got the Americans to back us up.
Now you want the nuclear umbrella and the F-16s.
If Trump says, if you don't pay your 3% GDP, you're out of NATO,
Yeah,
and we're not going to support you no more, then we're in deep shit.
I don't know. Do you want to say anything, Mike? Now Johnny wants the F-16s.
That was a little bit telling.
Hang on, John.
Yeah, that was a little bit telling. So there's a reason why they consider the United States the indispensable country. But when you're talking about Iraq, that story's not written yet. It's still in the process. And in some ways, Iraq is still at war. I don't know how many people realize how much of a threat it started out is Al-Qaeda in Iraq, AQI, and that when a group is so extreme that Al-Qaeda kicks you out, that's what AQI turned into ISIS. They were too extreme for Al-Qaeda. And they're still active in Iraq and in Syria and on the border of Turkey. Jordan's in on that fight. So it's the story of Iraq is not yet written. When the combat ceased in Japan and Germany, it took more than a decade for those countries to get back on their feet because it was just the fight was so hard. Iraq is yes, we invaded. The merits of that is a little bit whataboutism when you're talking about Ukraine, but the nation of Iraq is run by Iraqis. Yes, we invaded, but we gave it back to the Iraqis. It's not our country. It never was. We never wanted it to be. That wasn't the point. Now, to a certain extent, Iraq has been treating the United States the last 10 years or so kind of like Johnny. We don't like America until we need you. So there's been various points where they've made noise about making sure the last small number, I think it's less than 2,000, mostly people securing the embassy and very small numbers of forces, but they are there to help Iraq counter ISIS and to make sure that ISIS doesn't grow in Iraq, can still run Iraq. At this point, that is something called a status of forces agreement. We have one of those with Germany still. That's where two sovereign nations form a treaty for what their respective militaries can do on sovereign soil that isn't part of that nation's military. That's how America can have military bases in Germany and the UK and Italy, various places like that. So yeah, we have a status of forces agreement with a sovereign free nation of Iraq that runs itself, and we help them fight against ISIS, but they're still in the process of rebuilding. So if you ask me, what did we get? How did Iraq turn out? Well, maybe that's a question for 10 years from now, because that answer doesn't really exist yet. Or more honestly, it's still in process.
Do I owe you, Johnny? Yeah. Do I owe you an apology?
No. I got a plan for Ukraine.
You got a plan? Okay, go ahead.
For Ukraine.
I can't wait.
If Ukraine hates Russia that much, I got a plan. Instead of war, build a 100-foot wall all along your Russian border, 100-foot wall, and build an iron dome in Ukraine, and we'll get on with your life. Rebuild, farm, build stuff, produce, do what you want. Just get the 100-foot wall done. A real good wall, though, not those cheesy walls. And that's it. I don't think Russia's going to bother you. I'm thinking like Trump right now.
Okay.
Just get an iron dome and a 100-foot wall. Maybe 150-foot wall. About 6 feet thick.
Yeah.
All the way up. Okay, put some sensors on the bottom so they can't dig tunnels. And there you go. And you live your life. And move on and just forget about this. This war, nobody's getting rich from it, and nobody's profiting from it. It's a mess.
Well,
right?
What do you want? What do you want Ukraine to do?
Ukraine's a beautiful country.
What
they got so much resources there.
Are you
stolen? I'm telling you right now, it's all going to be stolen from them.
Yeah, by Russia.
One day, go, huh? What happened to our resources?
They're trying to take it right now. That's what they're doing there. They're taking it.
They're going to take it.
Yeah, the Russians.
Build the goddamn wall right across the whole Russian border, and put it across Baba Rus there, whatever it is, so they can't get through there.
Are you suggesting that Ukraine can unilaterally bring this to an end?
I'm just telling you, build a wall and get an iron dome and move on, and Putin will say, huh.
I don't think that's going to help with the tanks that are already in the country rolling toward Kyiv.
Oh, Putin will pull them back and start building that wall. Either that or you're going to get trapped in there, and that's it. Then you can kill them off. There's no more coming in. War is the worst way to settle things. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
I hate war.
Me too.
I hate war. I'm thinking there's got to be a better way than war, Rick. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
I agree with you.
Especially when you're a broke country. You know, right now, Ukraine's got the resources like nobody's business. They got a lot of resources.
Well, they had a lot more until Russia took the Donbass and all of their heavy industry up there, and the factories and Crimea, which
it's on our side of the wall. What's on our side?
Yeah, they had a lot more.
Yeah, Russia's. They got to get to that port. But make it a mutual port, everybody.
Well, they did. Ukraine gave them a lease agreement, so they could have their navy there.
Well, there
no issue.
Go. Share it.
They did. They did share it. It was shared.
So
100% shared.
So what's wrong with that?
Nothing. Ask Putin. What's wrong with that?
You know, like You know what's happening to Ukraine? It's getting worse and worse. The people there, they're sick of it. And they're not going to get rich. They're getting poorer and poorer. They should be all, they should be all wealthy people right now. They got so much going for them. And they got this stupid war going on.
Well, whose fault is that?
Why? Because the NATO says so?
NATO?
Who's calling the shots here? Sure, in Ukraine.
NATO didn't invade Ukraine.
Well, if you remember
One
if
dude.
you remember in the beginning, Putin wanted to make a deal, and Ukraine said, not 1 inch. You don't take 1 inch. And the U.S. talked Ukraine out of it, and no deals.
Well, that's the narrative that has been spun up.
You're not going to defeat Russia without a nuclear war. That's all I got to tell you. If that's the way you want to go,
I'm worried about that.
Russia,
Yeah.
they've warned you over and over, and you're not going to defeat Russia without a nuclear war.
And if you're winning a war, why do you need to threaten the other side with nuclear weapons?
Who's winning the war? I don't see anybody winning the war right now.
No, I don't either. I see it as kind of a stalemate, a little gain here, a little loss there on both sides.
Oh, man.
People
Russia
still dying.
could level that place in a couple of days if they did it under the table. Russia's they're trying to obey all the sanctions, not sanctions, whatever. If it was an open game and they can do whatever they want. Oh,
seriously,
Russia's trying to obey all the rules, like when they when they arrested those terrorists after the Crocus City Hall, is that right? Massacre, and then those guys had their ears cut off, and they videotaped that and put it online, which is a war crime.
Look what they did. They came into a movie theater.
I don't have sympathy for those guys, but I also stand against war crimes and torture.
What's the difference between that or execution? That's what they do in the States. Okay, they give you the electric chair. What's the difference? Right? You murder someone, you get the chair.
Well, I'm against capital punishment. That's also a whataboutism. That's the justice system. That's another thing. I'm against capital punishment.
But anyways,
that's another issue altogether.
Wars don't settle nothing. I'm telling you, Rick. Wars don't, especially when you're a country like Russia. It's a power machine.
Tell that to the
only way
French.
you're going to defeat Russia is a world nuclear war. That's the only way you're going to defeat them, and nobody wins. Nobody wins. Everything's leveled. Is that what you want?
No.
Is that what Ukraine wants?
No.
Well, you're going to get it.
Well,
you're not going to defeat Russia without a nuclear war.
Well, so at what point do you draw the line and say no further? Do you do it at Ukraine, or if you show
get to the table? Get to the table.
Yeah.
If you're not going to Trump.
I'm all for that. Let's have negotiations and let's
he's going to end
fix
all
this.
He's going to end this.
Russia is not an honest.
Well, for Ukraine, I tell you.
Mike wants to speak. Just a moment.
Okay. Russia is not an honest negotiating partner at this point. They've demonstrated that again and again and again and again and again. So when you talk about let's just go to the table, not until Russia is actually going to sit down with some honesty. And so right now, Russia's bargaining position is that they currently occupy all of Crimea and parts of Donetsk, Luhansk, and Kherson. Their bargaining position is they want all of Kherson, Donetsk, and Luhansk, even the places they don't currently occupy, and then they'll stop. That's their current negotiating position. So they want to gain territory that they were not able to gain on the battlefield, and that's besides that, those lands are not Russian. So their bargaining position is dishonest from the start. And then when you're talking about why fight and why defend yourselves, and why not just negotiate from the start? Well, your position is that they want to surrender. I don't get that. That's not what free people do. That's not what people that want to be free do. And as far as wars not deciding anything, ask the people of France, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Norway that the United States and British and the rest of the allies, including Canadians, liberated. Ask them what war decided. The United States being willing to fight for their freedom was what gained them their freedom. War made all of the difference for them. Now the Germans brought the war to them, and that's what started it. But we weren't going to say, oh, well, that's fine. You can have all those countries. That's not what we did. We said, no, you can't do that. We're not going to allow it. And so when we decided to fight and to liberate lands, it made all of the difference to those countries, all of the difference in the world. They went from under Nazi rule to free. And that's all of the difference in the world. So yes, war can solve problems. The United States is not perfect, but one of the ideals we try and go for, and a lot of us swear to support and defend. Of all the weird things that I've given to Ukrainian soldiers, there's one gentleman who's been fighting this war since 2014. He's been special forces for the recent past, certainly the last 3 years or so. And he's also been a special forces instructor, and he's a friend of a friend. So he told a friend of mine that, man, he's like, I see these American movies with the drill sergeants. They got that nifty Smokey the Bear hat. Always wanted one of those now that I'm an instructor. And so word got back to me, and I know former drill instructors. And I'm like, hey, any of you guys got a spare hat you'd be willing to give this guy? So yeah, I delivered him a spare hat. But one of the things that was on there was the medallion that's on the front of the hat is the Great Seal of the United States of America. And part of that is an eagle. And in one talon, he's clutching a whole bunch of arrows. Those are the weapons of war. And in the other talon, he's clenching an olive branch, which is the desire for peace. The Great Seal of the United States, the eagle's face always points towards the olive branch, that given our choice, we'd want peace. Nobody wants war. And when you're talking to military people, they're the first people that don't want war, because guess who's going to go have to fight it? And guess who's going to be putting themselves in harm's way? The military people. So yeah, military people really don't want war. But it's one of those things that if it happens, if war comes to us, we're going to fight it. We're going to fight it on our terms, and we're going to win. That's why the eagle always has in its other set of talons a whole bunch of arrows. So yeah, if war comes to us, we're gonna give it to you, and you're not gonna like what we give. The Germans certainly didn't like it in World War II. But the French and the Belgians and the Luxembourgs and Danes and all those other people that we liberated, they kind of sure appreciate it.
And what would you say to, I think it was Zalmatched, who says that, Boris Johnson went to Ukraine and stopped the peace deal with Russia. So what would you, how do you assess that?
Well, Boris Johnson was not in charge of Ukraine. So Boris Johnson is not the leader of Ukraine. So the decision...
I'm actually, Mike is talking right now, John. So just hang on a second. Mike is I was actually asking Mike, so just a moment. Sorry.
So yeah, Boris Johnson was not the leader of Ukraine. The United Kingdom does not make the sovereign decisions of Ukraine. The United States does not make the sovereign decisions of Ukraine. When on February 24th of 2022 happened, and there's this big invasion, and from the first day, the naysayers are like, Ukraine's going to lose in 3 days. And so we were like, hey, President Zelensky and the rest of the government, we're willing to send a jet. We'll get you out, and you can form a government in exile. And President Zelensky said, I don't need a ride. I need ammunition. And so Ukrainians made this decision. Boris Johnson did not make this decision to defend themselves. Russia made the decision to start this war. Russia decided that they could not tolerate the idea of a free Ukraine that was not beholden to Russia, which is not a Ukraine beholden to Russia is not a free Ukraine at all. So Russia could not stand the thought of a free Ukraine. And when Russia tried to go in hard, and Ukraine said, no, you're not going to do that. We are going to defend ourselves. That's where we're at. It wasn't Boris Johnson's choice. It wasn't President Biden's choice. It was the people of Ukraine.
Okay, John, I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing is, Crimea, ask Kevin. They're all Russian-speaking people there, okay? They're all Russian-speaking people on Donbass and Crimea. And also, I'll tell you one thing. Trump is going to win the election. Trump's going to win. Mm-hmm. And what has he been saying over and over and over? He's going to end that war first day. And what are they going to do then?
Well, hopefully
what are you going to do?
Well, I don't know. Hopefully it's a good deal and they live in peace. But Mike is going to respond to what you said.
It's not the United States president's choice. If the United States, for not good reasons, decides to stop helping Ukraine, that's not going to stop this war. It's not the United States president's call. The rest of Europe has committed to defending Ukraine completely outside of the United States. There has been much movement in the last 12 months in that direction, because when you're talking about the rest of NATO, certainly the rest of NATO, but also the European Union, their GDP is roughly similar to the United States. Their population is 40% bigger than the United States. Europe is capable of giving serious aid to Ukraine without the United States' help. So I don't know what any magic plan to end this war include, because that sounds like magic to me, which is something that I don't think is real. But if Russia somehow managed to conquer Ukraine, at least if they managed to occupy all of Ukrainian lands, that still wouldn't end it. Because I know Ukrainians, they would not sit for that. There would be resistance. There would be partisans active, guerrilla warfare. There would be an ongoing battle, even if Russia managed to occupy all of Ukraine. That wouldn't end it. So the only way this ends is for Russia to go home. That's the only way this ends.
Okay. So, John.
Yeah. I'm here.
Do I need to apologize? Am I wrong?
Oh, good luck. Good luck going against a nuclear power country there, Ukraine. Good
Well,
luck.
you've got a point there. Okay, that's why I've said.
Good luck. Good luck.
Okay, this is like, even when the Soviet Union was in power and Finland was up against there.
Push comes to shove, they're going to use it. So
I sure as hell hope not.
They're going to use it.
That's insane.
It's best to end it now and get on with the rebuilding and
has to be. Hey, man, I agree with you, but it's got to be a two-way street, and you and I aren't in control. So
if you don't try, you don't know. You got to keep trying. Work out the best deal you can get.
Yeah.
You're probably going to lose Crimea there. That you can make it joint so you both have access to the ports. But
they already did that.
It's all Russian people there.
Yeah, with that, like I said before. They did have access to the port through a lease agreement. They had it.
Well, just do it the same way then, and.
Well, tell that to both sides, because you need both sides to come to the table. And
no, I don't see anybody coming to the table. When was the last time they came to the table?
I don't know, Mike. When was the last time they sat and talked?
I I hear the Russians saying they want to go to the table a lot of times. But
well, they say that, but
the
that's
states don't want them to go to the table. The states want it all. They want all of it. They want everything. They want it all, and they're going to get it. And then Ukraine's going to go. What happened?
Hang on, Mike's going to answer the question. When was the last time, Mike, that there were negotiations?
I'm going to look it up here quick, but there was a peace summit in, I'd like to say it was hosted by Switzerland, Ukraine Peace Summit in June of 2024. So there was a group of nations, and Russia was invited to it.
We were covering that. That's right. Yeah.
And Russia refused to attend.
Yep, that's right.
And that was going to be one of those, look, we can cease hostilities. We want Ukrainian land back. That's all we want.
Did they refuse to attend, or were they not invited?
I'd have to look it up. But
either way, they weren't there. And then China also didn't go because Russia wasn't there. I think they weren't invited. Technically, but I'd have to review to be sure. And I remember saying at the time that it looked to me like Ukraine was really trying to build support among supportive countries so that they would be able to go into negotiations with a stronger front, with support of other nations behind them to broker a peace deal. And I would say even this situation in Kursk might actually help get to a place of peace quicker.
So
by exerting pressure, but over to you.
The report that I just read was that when they were planning the meeting, the peace summit in Switzerland, that Russia was like, yeah, we're not, that's not going to be worthwhile. Then that's not something we can do. And why would anyone do that? So that would be why they weren't invited. But that's because Russia already said that it wasn't worth their time. So why? I probably still would have invited them, but I can understand not doing it, because what would the point be?
Well, that just shows why we can't get to a place of peace, because you need both sides to sit down sincerely and negotiate something.
Rick,
and even with regard to the Minsk Accords, though, last night Kevin pointed his finger at Ukraine and Poroshenko, saying in a clip that Ukraine used that to buy time.
Well, that's what a ceasefire is.
I found that clip, but the comments weren't nuanced last night. It's more complicated than that.
But the Minsk agreements were an attempt at a ceasefire, and the ceasefire never actually happened because the fighting didn't stop. So a ceasefire is not a peace treaty, and if the fighting doesn't stop, it's not even a ceasefire.
And more than that, Russia kept saying, we're not arming any rebels up there. We're not supplying arms.
Yeah, they were.
And they absolutely were. And then when they agreed to the Minsk Accords, well, who had to sign it? Russia. Why? Because they were supplying the arms, and they were supplying the funding and the weapons.
And a lot of the troops.
By signing the Minsk Accords, that is in itself an admission that they were the ones behind the separatist movement up there and the rebels.
So, Rick, you brought up a good point about this is going back to the Soviet Union and Finland, where when you're talking about an asymmetric war, where it's a big nation on a small nation, small nations don't give up the right to defend themselves and to maintain their own sovereignty just because they're small.
That's right.
There's a reason why the invasion of Poland in September of 1939 kicked off the war. Poland was small. Their military wasn't small for the time, but it was obsolete in a lot of ways. Not completely, not as much as some of the histories say, but Poland did not have the most effective military in 1939. But that doesn't mean that they didn't have a right to exist. Poland had a right to be free of war and to live peacefully. Ukraine has that same right now. There's a reason why war is bad, and why in Nuremberg, one of the crimes that we convicted people of is waging a war of aggression, basically starting a war that didn't need to start. And that's what we have right now in Ukraine. This didn't need to start. Ukraine wasn't looking for it. Russia decided they couldn't tolerate European Ukraine. Now, one thing that was brought up, and I did want to, I don't have the article up right now, but in 2013, Russia did say that Ukraine joining the European Union was a direct threat to Russia. So whatever they said in 2022, in June 2022, where Putin was blowing the smoke screen about, oh, well, we don't have an argument with them joining the European Union. Well, in 2013, you said the exact opposite, and that's what started the war in 2014. That's what helped kick this whole thing off. So he can say what he wants in 2022. That doesn't change the fact.
And, you know, as we kind of get near the end of this broadcast tonight, and John, I think
I got one more thing to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Just
First of
one?
all, you can look it up. There was no talks. Zelensky said, we ain't talking with Russia until they move all the military out of Ukraine. And Russia refused to move the military out of Ukraine. That's why there was no talks.
Just think about what you just said.
Because Zelensky says, you want to talk?
Right.
Move all the military out of Ukraine. And Russia says, we're not moving our military out.
Yeah.
Until we get something signed on paper. Anyhow, that's why. And then, does Mike speak Ukrainian?
Only a little bit,
If he does,
not very
I
much.
got some good advice for him. Get citizenship and buy as much property as you can in Ukraine. You'll be a rich man there, Mike. There you go. That's my 2 cents for Mike. Help, but I'm out. Seems like a guy worked hard all his life.
You know the bigger. Do you want to respond to that at all?
Which part?
I don't know.
So what is the matter with when Russia starts a war against a small country and invades a small country, and the country decides to fight back tooth and nail with their heart and soul and their most all of their creativity and grit going into defending themselves, and they say, look, we don't want to continue this. If you just give us our land that you were trying to take, it was one of those, it's our country. You came in causing this ruckus. If you stop the ruckus and go home, we're done. We're not going to go back and try and invade Russia. It's not like this is, so yeah, I don't get it. If Russia took their toys and went home, Ukraine would celebrate peace. It would be instantaneous. Ukraine would not want any more of this.
And they wouldn't have any Ukrainian soldiers on Russian soil.
No, they would certainly leave. They would certainly leave Russian soil.
Yeah, and you know the other thing that I'm actually kind of worried about is that RFK Jr. video, John, because I'll tell you why. I'm worried about that. I just showed you that the information in that is not even close to accurate. He's not telling us the truth. It is not honest.
Watch Mitch McConnell's eyes. Watch that black guy. Okay? What they're saying is not adding up. But Mike, buy some land in Ukraine. Become a citizen. When this all gets settled, you become a developer. You can build all kinds of plazas. You'll be a rich man. Right now, you can get it for next to nothing.
So you're still cool with RFK Jr.? You think he's being an honest dealer?
I trust. I like that guy. He's the only guy that I think that I don't like. You just proved Trump there. He says first day I'm going to stop. Now Mike's saying no. He's
Look,
got
man,
no pull in it.
I've liked Trump for a long time. I've liked him for a long time.
Lying, then.
What?
He's lying. He says, first day I'm going to end that war in Ukraine. First day.
If anybody can do
Mike
it,
says
I
nobody
think
did
Donald
it.
Trump might be able to. But the point is, right? I don't understand you, John. Like when if I'm wrong, I will apologize. So I'm going to ask you again. Do I need to apologize? Am I wrong about the RFK Jr. video?
Well, I believe in it, so you believe in what you want.
No. I gave you facts.
I believe in it. No, you didn't give me no facts.
I did too. I even cited.
You want me to dig it up? I'll dig up those companies, okay? I'll dig it up, send it to you. Okay? I'll dig up those companies. I'll do the...
What are you going to dig up? What part?
All those companies that you mentioned.
Yeah, Northrop Grumman. Yeah.
Yeah.
General Dynamics.
DuPont.
Cargill.
DuPont. Those.
What about?
Yeah.
So
DuPont. They're all owned by BlackRock.
Owned by BlackRock.
They're all there, like thieves, ready to rape Ukraine.
You proved me wrong. I just told you what percentage of those companies is owned, in general. 5-6%.
Well, they're there for the takes. So, and Mitch McConnell, look at his eyes. This money is not going to Ukraine. And that black guy, don't worry, we're getting it all back. How are they going to get it back, Rick?
Because it's an investment.
Yeah,
it's an investment.
Yeah.
And they need to capitalize the rebuilding, and that's the way economics works.
They're going to have to sell their assets
and
to
thank
pay it
God,
back.
there's an ability there to capitalize rebuilding.
Good luck to you. That's all I got to say. Hope you know what you're doing.
Who, me?
I'm just...
Don't shoot the messenger, man. I'm just sitting here giving you the info.
I'm a nobody, and I'm just trying to tell you this is what I think.
Well, it's not about what we think. It's about what's the truth.
Videos
I might not like this, and I might not like that, but my job is not to sit here and just tell people what they want to hear. It's not just my job. I know that I know that there's a really weird thing going on, and people want Russia to win. And they want us to lose. I don't want that, but regardless, if I want more people to watch, right now all I have to do is cheerlead for Russia and tear down the West. Tear down Canada, tear down the United States.
I'm not cheerleading for either country because I disagree with
But
war.
I don't do that here. I never have done that.
I disagree with war.
Well, me
I
too.
don't think war settles anything. Okay? It's like the big bully at the school.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a bigger bully. And, I'm telling you, Ukraine better watch themselves. They'll end up with nothing.
Yeah, no shit. That's why they're fighting. Because they don't want to end up with nothing. They're fighting to keep their country.
Everybody wants it. The Americans want their assets. Russia wants their assets. And Ukraine's going, who should I give it to? Okay?
America doesn't want Ukrainian assets.
Don't think the Americans are saints. They're there to give you $136 billion, $160 billion for nothing. And then you got to rebuild. That's, like Mitch McConnell says, when the rebuild, that's when they profit. The Americans profit.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, well... I guess we should probably...
How much money you got? You better start selling some farmland. Sell this, sell that. Okay, you got to put up some collateral.
Well, I gave you the exact law.
You don't trust a banker,
I gave you the exact law, Johnny, that prohibits foreign ownership of Ukrainian farmland because they want to preserve their sovereignty, they want to preserve their economic future, and so they've got laws there.
Ways around that. I'm sure BlackRock's smart enough to get ways around that.
I just explained it to you. It's the moratorium reform law.
Okay. Well,
So,
I'm sure they got
so
ways around
what
that.
is presented in that RFK Jr. video and these other videos that you've been watching and sending me from these other journalists, all right, it's demonstrably not frickin' true. It's a lie. It can't be true because I just showed you that it can't be.
Rick. I'm glad you trust the government.
Oh, for crying out loud. It's not about trusting anything, and that's why I go looking for the real information. And I just gave it to you. It's the fact. You can look it up.
Oh, the Americans, they're really good people. They're saviors.
Well, you told me that video was proof, and all I hear is statements made.
On taxpayers' dime, they're going to save Ukraine on taxpayers' dime. Oh yeah.
There were statements made in the video, and it was a slick little production, but those were statements not backed up by any factual evidence. No, didn't bring any documents. Didn't bring any receipts.
I was telling you this even before I seen that video. Something don't add up to me. To me, nothing. There's no such thing as a free lunch, Rick.
That's right, John, and that's why when things don't add up, I go looking for real information, which is what I just gave you tonight.
Okay, a free lunch. Okay, the Americans are just coughing up all kinds of money because they're nice people and they just want to help you. Yeah.
I need to address that.
Yeah, well, it's
anyways,
okay. Okay, that's cool. This was hey man, this good conversation.
I got no game in it.
Good conversation. Yeah. I appreciate you hanging in there, and
I'm just putting my hindsights in it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't hate nobody. I just want war to end. That's all. But I don't hate Ukrainians. I don't hate, but I do hate Zionists. I hate to tell you. Just for what they're doing. But anyways, I like Jews, though. The Jews are good people. Anyways, buy some property, Mike, in Ukraine. Best investment you ever make.
I love you, Johnny. We got to get your head out of the internet. We got to get you out of the social media, because I got to pull you back into the Maverick land. Okay, come home. Come home.
All right, Rick.
Okay, man.
Pleasure talking to you guys. Have a good night.
Okay, Sir John. You take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
So one of the most common pushbacks that people say, why is America helping Ukraine? There's two parts to this. We don't want Ukraine's assets, but it benefits us to have as many free nations in the world as we can. Sovereign nations that make their own choices, but free. So it benefits us to have a Germany that's free. It benefits us to have Japan that's free. It benefits us to have a United Kingdom that's free. Benefits us to have a Canada that's free. It will benefit us to have a Ukraine that's free. So there's the economic benefit that's just what free nations have. But there's this point of like, wow, they're spending all these gobs of money. I don't think people have a real sense of what these numbers mean. So I'm going to look it up quick to make sure that I'm not giving you the wrong number. But the, let's see, GDP USA let me add a year to it. In the year of 2023, the United States had a GDP of just over $27 trillion. The United States defense budget the last 10 years or so, in today's dollars, because inflation, you have to compare apples to apples, it has been roughly $800 billion every single year. That's not including the atomic energy budget, which is in addition, which includes other things, but also contributes to our nuclear weapon deterrence. So we do have weapons in addition to the defense budget, in the atomic energy budget. So we spend more than $800 billion every single year on a gross domestic product. Our economy is worth, in 2024, it's going to be close to $28 trillion. We spend a little bit more than 3% of our gross domestic product on our military. 3%, 3 pennies out of every dollar. It's just not a lot that we spend. And we spend $800 billion. Now, when you're talking about the help that we've given Ukraine, which is somewhere in excess of $100 billion. I'd have to look at what the exact number is right now. That is what? An eighth of 1 year of our defense budget. So an eighth of 3% is not very much money. So it would be somewhere less than 0.5% of our gross domestic product is what we spent in 2.5 years helping Ukraine defend themselves. So less than half of a penny of every dollar, something like 0.4 if my head math is right. It's just when all these numbers, when you throw around $100 billion to the rest of us that are working in a single person's money land, that sounds like a lot of money. But when you're comparing it to our defense budget of $800 billion and our GDP of $28 trillion, it's not so big. So there's a joke that in the U.S. government, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, soon that'll add up to real money. And they're not wrong. Our budget's just that big. Our economy's just that big, where $100 billion, it's real money, but it's not going to break us. And it can make all of the difference in the world to Ukraine. And it has. 2.5 years later, they're still free. It's made all of the difference in the world when you want to talk about how much that's helped somebody.
Well, what a night.
Yep. Hey, you want peace all day long, and I agree with you, but when war comes to you, you're going to have to be prepared to fight it. Like when he was talking about the bully on the playground. Well, when a bully comes after you, how do you get the bully? Well, bullies generally act out of cowardice, and they're trying to make up for something. If you go after them and you show that you can't be bullied, they're going to stop bullying you. Just saying.
And as weird as last night was, and as, and even though I have concerns about the way that went down, I'm still grateful to you and to Kevin for coming together and at least talking about underwear. So,
hey, coffee is a worthy discussion too.
Yes. Yeah. So there's still hope, and you're both always welcome here. And I look forward to continuing these conversations.
I'm serious about coffee.
I know you are. You have your own personal roaster. So yeah. And folks, I appreciate everybody stopping by as usual and hanging out and participating in the chat tonight too. It's been a great conversation. And Johnny, I love you, and I look forward to your morning calls. And you keep on trying to convince me of things and send those links along. And thanks for putting up with me, challenging you back tonight. I was right there. If you wanted to spank me and get me to apologize if I was wrong, that was your opportunity. You'll have others. And I'm not always right. So one of these days I will say I'm sorry. But not today. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the flip side.
Thanks again for listening to me, everyone.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.